In 1937, comic books were mostly known for reprinting reruns of newspaper cartoon strips. To brighten up a dull market, Detective Comics, later known simply as DC, introduced the detective figure as central to all of their comic book action. Readership soared just 1 year later with the introduction of Superman, a healthy, clean-cut symbol of the American dream who had great strength and wore interesting clothes. DC comic artist and writer Bob Kane and fellow writer Bill Finger decided to come up with one of these superheroes themselves. Kane, inspired by the Shadow, Zorro, and the on-screen antics of Douglas Fairbanks Sr., decided that his new hero should be some kind of an acrobat man. The Caped Crusader was an immediate hit. First known as the Batman, his origins were rooted in darkness as the early comics focused on his detective skills and harped on the death of his parents as the singular cause of his vigilantism. As time went on, an eclectic rogues gallery of theatrical villains was introduced. Two-Face, Catwoman, the Riddler, Tweedledee and Tweedledum, Punch and Judy, the Scarecrow, the Penguin, and of course Batman's greatest foe, the Joker, all became staples of the comic. In the 1960s, CBS created a campy kids show starring Batman and his trusty sidekick, Robin. As the popularity of comic books waned, the 60s show quickly became the only depiction of Batman that most people were aware of. For years, any mention of Batman brought to mind silly costumes, tongue-in-cheek humor, and words like bang, zap, and pow. In the late 1970s, Indiana University professor Michael E. Uslan was the first college professor to teach a course on comic books. His passion for comics eventually led to him receiving a job offer from DC. After the success of 1978's Richard Donner-directed Superman movie, Uslan thought that Batman was next in line for a cinematic adaptation. Together with movie producer and childhood friend Benjamin Melnicker, Uslan was able to afford to buy the movie rights to the Batman property from DC. For almost 10 years, Uslan and Melnicker went around Hollywood pitching their idea for a dark Batman movie, but they were laughed out of every studio meeting until finally Warner Brothers decided to give it a shot once director Tim Burton was attached. A young, fresh newcomer to Hollywood himself with only 2 movies under his belt, in the eyes of Warner Brothers, Tim Burton was the ideal director to shepherd Batman to the big screen. He cast comic actor Michael Keaton in the role of Bruce Wayne in Batman. This became a hotly contested casting decision right up until the film's release. As the Joker, acting veteran Jack Nicholson was cast. This brought an element of prestige to the movie, convincing moviegoers that this version would be nothing like the campy TV show. Batman was released on June 23, 1989, amidst Batmania, a term coined for the heavy amount of fan anticipation for the film. It was an instant hit and became the most financially successful film of that year with a worldwide box office total of $411.6 million. While considered to be too dark for some, most approved of the film's radical new take on the character. The movie's success led to 3 sequels: Batman Returns, Batman Forever, and Batman and Robin. The Batman animated series, and later on the DC animated universe, was also created based off of the success of this film. The tone and style of this movie inspired many more superhero movies and altered the entertainment industry as a whole for years to come. Some consider it to be one of the most influential movies of the past 30 years. But what do we consider this movie to be? Join me, Matt McGregor, along with my co-hosts Harris McCabe and Colin Shaw, as we peel back the mask on this classic film. So strap on your utility belts, put on your Joker brand beauty products, and get ready to do the Bat Dance with us as we uncover all there is to know about the first film in the Batman Motion Picture Anthology series, 1989's Tim Burton classic, Batman. This is a show about franchises, superhero movie franchises. You're listening to License to Watch.
Why in the world was this movie made?
Talking about Darren Aronofsky, are you guys aware that he almost did a Batman movie?
Really? No, but it seems like a good fit, though.
When they were taking pitches, Warner Brothers was taking pitches. This was like pre-Batman Begins. Darren Aronofsky pitched, I believe, Batman either year 1 or beyond. I think it was year 1, though.
Well, I feel like an Aronofsky Batman would end up being closer to like a Burton Batman than like a Nolan Batman in my mind, because if Aronofsky's doing like a silly comic book thing, I like almost can't imagine him not just like going off the rails with it, you know?
Yeah, putting more style.
I don't know the details of the pitch or like if you can look that up to see what it was, but they were very close to greenlighting it, and then they changed their minds for whatever reason. I forget why.
I feel like he would really deal with like the dark, tortured psychological aspect of it more than Nolan or Burton really did, since that seems to be his area of interest with stuff like the wrestler and Black Swan, and it's all very much based on like obsession and stuff like that, destructive behavior.
I do know that there was a Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy ass to ass scene. And
God.
Yeah, Commissioner Gordon's just chanting ass to ass, ass to ass. Unforgettable. Great movie moments.
Yeah. So here we are. This is License to Watch, and we are talking about Batman. We're done with Lethal Weapon. We're on to the next one. And joining us for this episode is writer and comedian Jordan Pridgen. Hey, Jordan.
Hi, how's it going? Nice to be here.
Yeah, thanks for being a part of the show.
Yeah, happy to.
And glad you could be here for Batman, as I believe it is pronounced.
I think it's Batman. Batman. Yes.
Yeah. So you've been on a podcast before, or
so I am. I mean, I've done lots of like rando stuff in LA, but I am a besides just being a writer comedian, I'm also a live role player. Like I play like Dungeons and Dragons and role playing games like that on Twitch, and that's very podcast-esque. So I've got some experience with that stuff.
Now, do you have like a Twitch like fan base that will undoubtedly listen to this, or like will this just go?
I'll try and get them to listen. I mean,
but they're Twitchers. They're not Potters, Matt. There's no crossover there.
Yeah. It's a wide world. Worlds. People have got all sorts of interests, and hey, we'll see if I can get anybody to follow me.
So I mean, this movie is obviously a classic. It's been talked about up and down, like by everyone who could possibly talk about this movie. I feel like everything that's been that can be said about this movie has been said before, and so I'm curious to hear like the takes that we all have, and we were texting before the show and kind of saying like, or at least I was saying that like the only way you can watch this movie and enjoy it now is to like view it as sort of a timepiece, and it's sort of a window into the 1980s or 1989 specifically, and movies, a movie like this wouldn't be done like this anymore, and I think it stands the test of time in a lot of ways, but it doesn't in some ways too.
I'm curious about this because you guys were texting about this earlier, and I didn't for me, I was kind of surprised. This is a movie that I love and watched a lot when I was younger, and probably haven't seen in a long, long time. I was amazed at how long ago I probably have watched this movie. And I was really shocked at how well it holds up. Like, I felt like most of it, the practical effects, even stuff like the matte paintings, which are like intentionally artificial, but still kind of like worked as well as they ever did, like they're sort of just the style of the movie. And there wasn't a lot. I was kind of amazed. I expected it to be very much, very dated. And I felt like it held up really well, except for the use of animation, for certain scenes.
The like semi-practical animation stuff.
Yeah, right, exactly. Like cell animation to augment shadows and to like the Joker falling off the building and
that looks
the
really
spotlights. Yeah, some of them were just bad.
I think what I was referring to though is like not so much that any of the ways that this movie was made on like a practical sense like are dated. I think it holds up remarkably well. I think the stuff that is dated, and maybe dated isn't the right word, but like superhero movies specifically have come so far in like the way that they approach them, and that there are a lot of choices made in this movie that I think we're over. Like, we would not make those choices today. Audiences like have seen it too many times kind of thing,
Such as...
I completely agree with you on that, and I think if there's anything, it's like we're in a time of comic book movies, which are like movies based on comic book properties, but this is a comic book movie. Like, it feels like a comic book. It's like one step away from having bang pow, symbols.
There were even flash frames in I think one of the fights where it was clearly like I was kind of surprised at how many references to the old TV show were in here that were very subtle, but like this Commissioner Gordon is definitely the Commissioner Gordon from the old TV show. This Batmobile has fins and a rocket on the back of it and flies into a hidden wall cave thing. And there was a lot of those elements. And then there was some fight scenes that definitely, it felt like this is just like a setup right out of the old TV show where they're in a museum and he's got to fight all these goons to get out. And it's just like, oh my God, this is exactly like the old TV show, except taken very seriously, done so subtly that I never really noticed it when I was younger.
Right.
Yeah. So what I was along these lines, basically what I think is most dated about this, and in terms of what Matt was talking about, like they just wouldn't do it this way, is basically all the violence action and like the one-on-one personal confrontations, basically the fight scenes and the way they happen. And you know, one of the big glaring problems for me with this movie has always been, we're jumping way ahead, but when he gets to the bell tower and the black guy henchman in the sunglasses comes out of nowhere, when in terms of visual storytelling, we've seen everybody
that could have possibly gone up into that bell tower, and none of them were the three goons that actually fight him up there.
And basically, you know, that shows that, you know, the Joker in this story is kind of working on that principle of the way some video games work, where if the character is in a certain area, he spawns minions in that area, you know, which is something that like makes more sense to me for like 1990 action comic book movie than it does for, you know, 2020's action comic book movie, because it's more, yeah, like they want to harken to the old days of like boom pow zap, and they want to also just like put him in a fist fight, you know, for like.
Well, there's actually there's a good reason for both the three guys who fight him in the belfry, and for the goon that fights him with the swords in the alley for no reason. There's
what the hell is that scene?
There's an explanation for both of those, but I don't want to get into it right now. We'll tackle it later. I want to hear more about Matt's any of your other ideas because I agree exactly with what you're saying. I think you're right. I think there are things in that regard that are dated of just not how we do comic book stuff anymore, and I want to hear more of them.
Yeah, I don't think it's too much. I mean, like I'm kind of aligning with you a lot, Harris, that, you know, I like this movie a lot, and I don't think there's too much wrong with it. But the things that did pop out to me are sort of just like the things that don't have an explanation. Like, you know, where does Batman get all these wonderful toys from? And like suddenly he just has an airplane, and, you know, like his car is really cool.
And what was he doing for the previous,
right,
30 something years of his life?
Yeah, exactly.
How is it that nobody was sure the Batman exists when he has like the highest profile car in the city?
And also, no one knows who Bruce Wayne is.
No one knows who the most famous, richest orphan in the city is, or what his story is.
A reporter who is going to a party at his house
right.
didn't like look up a picture of him first.
Yeah,
and that's fine.
The reporter,
because they needed it for a joke.
And she asked the reporter who works in the city and has worked there for years who the richest resident is, and he's like, I don't know, he's a mystery, no file on him, you know, like.
Yeah, I don't know. This guy's dad was a doctor. Guess he's pretty rich.
Well, to me, this goes to the other big thing that, you know, sets it apart as of its time is perspective-wise. The stuff you're talking about, we're not really in Batman's perspective a lot. We're in, you know, like sort of the people of Gotham's perspective in general most of the time. And that is way different than especially the Marvel movies. So what I see is this as much more like a blueprint for where especially DC is going to have to go with their comic book movies, and that's world building over character building. I think Marvel did character building and they turned it into a huge franchise, and DC tried to do the same thing, but it just didn't execute as well. And like now they're gonna have to make more you know, original ideas for these same properties, and you're gonna have to see a director or artist build a world to put a story forward, I think.
Well, see, I agree to an extent, but I think kind of what really sets this apart for me and what really makes it feel dated, but in like a charming way and more like, oh, I don't think we could do that today, is that the story and the world it's telling are like super simple. And I mean, like, this is not the sort of thing where they're like, ooh, where did the Joker come from? What really created this chaos? It's like, this guy was bad, and he was bad and mean. And then something happened to him that made him even worse and meaner.
He fell in some goo.
And good guys helped him. And look at Gotham. It's full of greedy people. Like, this Gotham is not like a metaphor for New York. It's not like a metaphor for anything.
I love that.
Anything real. It's just heightened. It's just a heightened, crazy
love
comic
that.
book world.
It's a comic book.
Yeah,
That's exactly what it is.
Well, and I think, Colin, you made a great point on perspective, because this isn't Batman's movie, really. This is the Joker's movie and kind of Vicky Vale's movie.
Yeah, I was going to say Vicky Vale. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like it kind of ping-pongs back and forth between Vicky Vale and Joker's perspective for most of the movie. But it is kind of more about this heightened Gotham City world and these characters interacting within it.
I think something that stood out to me is the very first instant, the very first scene. We've got a couple with a young kid in the city, and the kid's got a map out, and he's like, "No, Dad, the 7th is that way," or whatever. And that doesn't exist. Basically, after my age group and generation, this is a super familiar thing. Is when I was young and with my parents, Dad could get lost, and Mom could be like, "What are we doing?" And I could be looking at a map and saying this is what the map says and stuff like that. We don't the paper maps don't even fucking exist after I turned 21 or something like that. So I mean, it's going back to all my memories of childhood, I always loved to be that kid with oh, I'm trying to get the map, and talking to my grandparents, they're trying to take me to Six Flags or whatever, and I'm the sombreros over there and shit like that.
Weird map diversion. I honestly don't know what the hell you were talking about for most of that time.
But that is so of its time is the point. That is that is
true.
That is 1989, and that's something people don't.
Although the vehicles come from the 1950s and the 1980s and the this also exists of its time, but it also exists out of time completely, because it's a fantasy world. It really is, and it's they don't try to make it seem like the real world, and they even double down in the sequel and make it even more stylized and even less real, which I think is something that you just don't see now. After the Nolan Batman movies, the push was realism. Yeah.
But I mean, all the buildings in Gotham are these enormous Gothic church-looking things, and he walks into the museum, and it looks like a building out of Metropolis. The Fritz Lang movie, not Superman.
Yeah. And I mean, even the Marvel movies basically take place in our regular modern world. They take place in real life. So in theory,
Yeah.
I love they have a cathedral taking up that kind of real estate that people don't use.
Yeah, it's in disrepair.
It's been empty for years.
Yeah. You gotta have a big fight in a bell tower,
Right.
And that's in. Watching it feels like the driving force of the movie is what would be a neat comic booky thing to do, and it wears that so on its sleeve that I don't hold that against it really. Whereas I don't know, sometimes if it feels this is just in here so they could have that cool set piece in modern Marvel movies or something, it feels cheap. But this felt like it was no, I'm trying to do that. If you haven't figured out that I'm not trying to be real by now, this might not be the movie for you.
Yeah,
I think a good example of this is the Joker, the staircase. He dances down the staircase. But why the staircase? Not because this is Gotham, but because it looked cool or it looked right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what you're talking about, I think, kind of.
Yeah, and that's a very Tim Burton sort of. He is a sort of style over substance director in a lot of ways, and this feels more of a Tim Burton movie than a Batman movie. As there's always that balance and that push and pull, but the choice here was to make it more of a Tim Burton movie.
What's up, ding dongs? It's me again, here to tell you about the License to Watch Patreon page. Subscribe now! All the cool kids are doing it. It only costs $1 a month. That's 12 measly bucks a year. That's the cost of 2 cups of coffee from Starbucks. Only the benefits here are so much greater. Instead of the runs and hyperactivity, you get access to License to Watch exclusive content. That means you get to hear your favorite boys discuss non-franchise classics such as David Lynch's Dune, the Bill Murray quote-unquote classic Scrooged, 90s spy adventure, The Saint, And if enough of you sign up, the boys will cover Zack Snyder's Justice League. Sure to be a 4-hour-long classic. So pony up, you cheapskates, and subscribe today at www.patreon.com/L2W. And don't make me have to repeat myself. Patreon.com/L2W. Subscribe now.
Well, as we're talking about Tim Burton, maybe we should, before we get further into our dissection here, maybe we should like sort of go into how this movie came to be and talk a little bit about the history of like how this all came together with Tim Burton directing and all that. Did you guys do any sort of research? I went overboard with the research.
Nice.
I'm under the impression that he kept the props from Scissorhands, and he just started running around with scissors on his hands, and somebody had to stop him.
And that's when Batman
Scissorhands was
born.
after this.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is only his third movie, right?
Yeah.
What was right before this then?
Beetlejuice.
Had he done Pee-wee?
Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice, and then before that was Pee-wee.
Pee-wee's Big Adventure was his first movie, and then Beetlejuice. And as a kid, this is, I guess I'm getting into like the part where we talk about our own memories of this movie, but like when I was younger, Beetlejuice is my absolute favorite movie for a long, long time. And I have to say that this is the movie, this is around the time, actually the Batman franchise was around the time when I realized what a director did, because I knew I liked Pee-wee's Big Adventure, I knew I liked Beetlejuice, and I liked Batman, and I liked Batman Returns, and then I went to see the Schumacher Batman movie, and I was like, wait, you mean you can have like a lot of the same elements and you put a different guy in charge and all of a sudden it's like so different? And I realized that what I liked about the movies was the Tim Burton-y elements of them were what I gravitated towards. And I was like, wow, the director really has a huge impact on like what happens in these things. And like just the idea that one person, it's not always a director, but that often the director is the person who sort of sets the tone of what the entire movie is and can make and break what it is. When it can be virtually the same in every other way, the director can sort of ruin it or elevate it depending on his skill level.
So this movie, I mean, before this, there was only the Superman movies, which were, I think the first one is considered like, or maybe the first two are considered good, and then the other two are kind of shitty, right?
The third one isn't terrible, but the fourth one is awful. The fourth one is so bad that it basically, they had to go into like movie detention for like a decade, I think.
Yeah.
I like Richard Pryor. He was good. I like him in
third.
everything.
That's the third one. That's kind of the redeeming one of the redeeming qualities of the third one.
But prior to this movie, the people's awareness of Batman was pretty much like overwhelmingly the 1960s TV show.
Yeah,
Yes.
with Adam West.
Yeah, if you said Batman to someone, they would think Adam West. Exactly.
I didn't read comics, and that was all I knew. All I knew about Batman when I watched this as a kid.
I was raised on the Adam West. I was fed that from a young age because it was like, yeah, he punched people, but besides that, it's like not super, harmful to show a kid that, I guess. And so like, I think I was like 4. I had already seen many episodes of the Adam West Batman.
Do you guys know who Michael E. Uslan is? I think Uslan or Uslan. I don't know how to say
I've heard
his
the name. I don't know.
He's credited as an executive producer on every Batman movie, and it's because he was a professor at like the University of Indiana, I think, or some school in Indiana, and he was the first professor to teach a course on comic books, like stories or like the lore of comic books, and this is back in the 70s. And some way or another, DC Comics like got in touch with him, and they said, they were really interested in what he was doing, and they believed in it, and like wanted to bring him on as like sort of a consultant of some kind. And so he worked for DC in some consultant capacity for several years. And while he was there, he learned that the rights to Batman weren't owned by anybody, or like they were open, like up for sale. And so he got some capital together with a partner of his, and the two of them bought the rights to Batman.
Wow.
And
so
the rest is history. So
That's crazy.
So he's credited, and he gets paid for every Batman movie that comes out and he probably bought it for like next to nothing.
Man, that's some stocks right
he
there.
was basically the guy. Him and his partner went around Hollywood in the 80s pitching a dark Batman movie. They wanted to bring Batman back in movie form, but have like a dark, brooding like version of it. And they were like laughed out of every executive office, like every studio, you know, until finally they were able to get Warner Brothers to go for it. And then they brought Tim Burton. Once they got Tim Burton on, then it was like the ball was rolling, sort of. But it took almost 10 years for this movie to come to fruition because everyone thought it was a joke. You know, like they would tell them their pitch, and people would be like, "No one wants to see this movie."
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, at the
that you're
time,
talking
I
about.
think Batman was last seen on episodes of Scooby-Doo at that point, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think, and there was definitely a moment, and I know we've talked about this before on the podcast about like how much I respect actors for their commitment, like sort of not because they never know how the end product's going to come out, and a lot of times they don't even know what the scenes are going to look like, and they have to be like
Every once in a while, they don't even know if they're in the movie. No.
right, but they have to be fully committed, like it's going to be great, and take it very seriously. Because if they're not, then it is going to be shitty. But sometimes there's just like you never want to think that you're in a turkey. But there was that moment where at the beginning of the movie where he fights the two goons on the rooftop and doesn't throw them off, and then does his line, "I'm Batman," and then he walks over the edge and spreads his cape like wings and jumps off, does this little jump off the edge. And I was just thinking, so when they're shooting that scene, is he sitting there going like, "Oh God, I hope this doesn't look fucking stupid"?
In his big old suit where he can't turn his head, and he knows
Can't turn his head. He's got to walk around all stiff, and then he's got to like sort of prance off the roof with his cape up like Dracula. And it had to cross his mind at some point, like, oh, I hope I don't get Razzie Awards for this, like, you know, because it could so easily be dumb.
I don't think so. I think he had absolute confidence, and he was just loving every minute of it.
I know. I just know that there has to be moments in this movie, especially when you think about it in the context of like Matt said, superhero movies hadn't worked. Everyone thought this was a joke. The people were excited. I remember people being excited for this movie, but I don't think anybody was sure that it was going to work or not, you know? And there had to be moments in the set where the actors were like, "Oh God, I just hope this isn't dumb."
I don't know. I wouldn't care. I mean,
Colin, that is your special gift.
Yes. And I've already tipped my hand that like I love Batman. Like, you know, from like before I can even really remember the first time I saw something Batman. And so yeah, it's super important to me. Like we were talking about that, Gotham is its own place. It's not just a metaphor for New York or something like that. It's Batman is a fantasy world. He's a fantasy character to me, and I think it's awesome. And if I was, you know, even in 1989, thinking like this movie may fail, just the opportunity to be Batman for me would have been like, I don't care. Like I'm Batman. Like this is the most excitement I could
Well,
get.
why was Michael Keaton cast? Was he excited about it, or was he just, you know?
Well, there was some controversy when he was cast. He was a Tim Burton pick because he had just worked with him on Beetlejuice, and he thought he had it in his eyes. Like Michael Keaton just has those like intense eyes,
Keaton
kind of
had
like
a
this.
comedy
you know?
background. At that
He was
point, too.
largely a comedic actor to this point. Yeah.
Yeah, and so a
Mr.
lot
Mom.
of fans, like the equivalent of the internet back then, like a lot of stern letters came in, you know,
Yeah.
saying that they didn't want Michael Keaton cast as Batman and he was the wrong choice or whatever. And I read or I heard Tim Burton say this somewhere that he found that like in the casting process, he had a lot of like square jawed, like American hero kind of people come in. And it was then that he realized that like Batman should be a guy who needs to dress up like a bat in order to like scare people or, you know, intimidate people, not these guys who they wouldn't need to dress up, you know, like they're strong and intimidating looking as it is. So like, that's why he thought Michael Keaton worked, because he feels like he is a guy who would need to dress up like a bat, you know, which is kind of cool.
His Bruce Wayne is like, that's the thing. The Batman is virtually the same as all the Batmans. It's not that different. It's like he's a detective and he's super smart. He's good at fighting and he has gadgets and he can move mysteriously through shadows and disappear and all the other regular shit. And he doesn't talk a lot. But then the Bruce Wayne part of this movie is what's really bizarre, because he plays this like distracted, socially awkward weirdo and somehow it works.
Yeah, he's so bumbling.
Yeah. It's like his head's never in the game, and he's always kind of like a little half there, and he's like he hangs upside down to sleep at night.
That hanging upside down is so good.
Oh my god, that was dumb as hell. But I
That was
don't
dumb
like
as hell.
it.
That was
But
very
there's
dumb.
so many like Batman media and movies and stuff kind of posit this idea that like Batman is the real Batman. Bruce Wayne is sort of almost his secret identity.
mask.
That's the mask. This one I sort of believe it because Bruce Wayne is like, "What? I guess we'll seat each other at the opposite ends of this table."
His first line is like, "I don't even know who I am," or something like, "I don't know if that's me." Like, you know,
Right.
right?
Yeah, he seems like he's got a mental illness in this movie. It seems like he's only comfortable when he's wearing his little suit and walking around punching people.
My favorite is, I think the key to like being Bruce Wayne and Batman is when you're sitting at the Bat computer in the Bruce Wayne clothes, because like that's where your worlds are colliding. And if you act good in that moment, I think you've done it. And I think Keaton excels here. Even there's one particular scene I'm thinking of. He's wearing those glasses, and those glasses are like the most 1989 pair of glasses you could possibly wear.
Yeah.
I think they have the little hooks that hold them on your ears or whatever. And like, you know, like he's acting through that to where it's like, yeah, like all I'm seeing is 1989. Wait, no, I'm seeing Bruce Wayne struggling to be Batman and Bruce Wayne as he sits at a computer. So I buy it.
You know what I think holds Bruce Wayne together in this universe? It's Alfred. Because
Oh,
this
yeah.
Alfred is just like, I mean, you see him literally following Bruce Wayne around and just like correcting things that he's doing incorrectly. Like Bruce Wayne just takes a pin and pops it into a plant, and Alfred is like ready to grab it. Puts down his cup, he like picks it up. Alfred like is constantly fixing Bruce Wayne's bumbling, ridiculous life.
I love that. It's like such a great visual way to show like their dynamic or their characterization. You know, it's like we understand that this man is his like actual caretaker.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
like
literally, yeah.
and he knows his every move, sort of thing. And I thought that was really great.
Yeah, Commissioner Gordon left rather unexpectedly. Rather unexpectedly.
yeah, exactly. And it's like it's so different than the other portrayals, like even the old TV show where he's kind of got his shit together with Robin, and you know the cartoons where he's always kind of like very on top of things, and certainly the Christopher Nolan movies where he's both acting like a goofy playboy but is also super competent both as a businessman and as an inventor and as all these other things. And Alfred's like his sidekick more than his, you know, in this one it's like he's only good at kicking people's ass, and all the rest of his life would be a disaster if he didn't have this
Right.
manservant going around to wipe his ass for him literally every other moment of his life.
Well, this is one of the big things that I was thinking about when watching it. Is we see him date Vicky Vale by inviting her over to eat in the big dining room. They have a couple bites of soup and realize
Getting
the
her
big
drunk
dining-
where he doesn't drink at all.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they have a couple bites of soup in the big dining room, and they decide this date's not working. Let's
because
go
they're
sit at a
sitting
real table.
comically far away from each other with
Yeah,
no
exactly.
reason.
Because he's a giant weirdo who didn't understand in advance that this would not be a good place to date.
Yeah. So they go in and they like sit at a real table and everything. But we have a time lapse here, and we see that all 3 plates have been eaten off of as Alfred is sitting there telling stories. So was the entire rest of the date with Alfred is my question.
Alfred saved the date.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Alfred even has to help him on his date.
Bruce realized he was struggling, and he went to where he always goes when he's struggling, which is Alfred. And then Alfred
Eating
fixed
alone in the
things.
kitchen. Yeah.
I cannot stop thinking about, like, you know, Alfred being on a date with Vicky Vale for a good 45 minutes while Batman sits there and like gives her the bad eye or whatever.
You know he would just be giving her creepy looks quietly from the other side of the room. Also, we don't know what happened after they fade to black for the sex scene, and I can only assume that Alfred popped in there and was
Shall
like,
we bring this party upstairs, Master Wayne?
"Work the nipples a little more, sir."
He's the consummate professional. He steps off to the side and only steps in when necessary.
Yeah, he has one of those silver trays with like maybe
Lube?
condoms. Yeah, exactly. Of course.
Butt plugs.
So Jordan, what is your? We like to ask the guests like what their first time seeing this movie was, or like, do you have any like fun stories or personal histories with this movie?
I don't remember when I first saw this as a kid. I mean, this came out a month after I was born, so I definitely didn't see it in theaters. But I just remember having, like, I saw this at some point as a kid and just, like, had the memory of it. You know, it's one of those movies you just, like, saw early enough that you're like, this is a movie I know. I did not watch this movie and, like, think about it as I thought it was good, but I didn't think about it like, oh, this is a piece of filmmaking. Pretty much until like a couple years ago. Like the second movie, Tim Burton's second one, Batman Returns, right? That one I like watched in high school and I was like, oh, this is amazing, and I like studied it, but for some reason I never went back and really watched like the first Batman. So I don't, besides it just being like something I knew about in my childhood, I didn't have any real deep connection to it. I was a big actual like Marvel Comics reader growing up, and part of me always kind of saw that like DC Marvel rivalry as like something that like mattered to me, you know? And I was like, well, Batman's okay, but he's no X-Men, you know?
He's just drawing like disgusting pictures of Wolverine ripping Batman apart, like blood everywhere.
Yeah.
Jordan, why have you done this?
It had to happen. The Bat must die.
So before we go any further, I think we should probably summarize the plot, because we're about to start to get into like more plot-heavy elements. So who's doing it this time? Was it Harris?
Yeah, I'm doing it. I'm up. It's my turn. And I did not practice or even try to like practice this at all. But I think this one should be pretty easy. I'm very familiar with this movie.
Yeah.
So Jordan, you know what's happening right now. Harris is going to attempt to summarize the plot in 2 minutes. You have some familiarity with this podcast, right?
A little bit.
Okay.
I'm not going to attempt. I'm going to succeed in accurately summarizing this plot.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. On your mark, get set. Batman.
Okay, so we open with a family. Well, we open with this weird shot of going through like tunnels and Danny Elfman music playing, and then we realize it's the Batman sign. And then we cut to this family that's leaving a theater, and they're taking a shortcut through a dark alley, and they're being confronted by muggers. But it's not Bruce Wayne and his parents. It's just some rando tourists, and nobody does anything to stop the muggers, and they steal the lady's pearls, and they run off. And then they're counting up the money, and all of a sudden, Batman shows up and he kicks their ass and he says, I'm Batman, and he jumps off the roof. And then we find out that this is a town that's full of crime and everything's going wrong, and everyone's panicking, and there's this mob boss called Grissom, and he's got his right-hand man, Jack Napier, who is boning Grissom's girlfriend, and they don't know that Grissom already knows about this. And Jack is kind of a nutcase, and he's very reckless, and everyone hates him, but he's very vicious, and he's sort of an enforcer. So Napier sends him to Axis Chemicals to like cover up some crime, but really it's a setup, and the cops are going to kill him. But then Batman intervenes, and meanwhile, Batman intervenes, and then in the fight he accidentally drops Napier into a vat of chemicals that turns his skin white and messes up his face. No, his face gets messed up because he gets shot. But anyways, so then
a little both.
Yeah, so then he pops up again. He goes back and he kills Grissom, and then he's like fully unhinged, and he takes over Grissom's empire, and he kills all the other gangsters in town that would get in his way. And he becomes obsessed with this reporter named Vicky Vale, who is dating Bruce Wayne. And they met at a charity auction. I forgot to talk about that. But anyways, so they're dating kind of, but Bruce Wayne, slept with her once, and then he's been ghosting her for some reason, because he's a weirdo. And then the Joker lures her to this museum to have dinner, and then he gets, I don't know, Batman shows up and saves her, and oh man, I'm not doing well.
You're only an hour in.
You spent 15 seconds on the opening credits.
So anyways, Joker's got this plan to poison all the citizens of Gotham with Smilex chemical products, and he puts them all into their cosmetics, and Batman figures it out, and he saves the day. And then at the big parade at the end, Joker's going to kill everyone with gas, and Batman comes at his Batwing and steals the balloons that are dumping the gas. And then they go up into the tower, and they fight, and in the bell tower, and then at the end, Batman kind of fucks the Joker over and knocks him off the tower, and they live happily ever after. At the end. I was close. I mean, I wasn't close, but
No, that was probably your worst one ever, I think.
yeah,
You're a little rusty.
yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, you gotta summarize.
I feel like I nailed it though.
Okay. Yeah, I'll support you. I support you.
I felt like it was important to mention the beginning only because it's such a weird way to open this movie. I remember watching this for the first time at like my grandmother's house, and nobody could figure out what was going on, and everyone's like, "Are they in a tunnel? I don't know what's happening now. Why is the camera moving through this thing? What is this thing?" And everyone was very upset.
Well, so the part you mentioned right after that was something that struck me pretty quick, and it's definitely intentional. The fact that like when it starts out and it's got like this kid with his two parents who are leaving the theater, and like muggers show up. Anyone who knows the Batman story immediately thinks, "Oh, this is the Batman origin story." But it's not. The movie actually like really slow rolls the whole Batman origin story, which is something I like.
They
almost
tease it so
can't
bad.
Imagine like a modern movie doing. They're like, well, you have to tell the origin story first. That's how it works. But like this one, if you knew a little bit about it, it tricks you. But like if you didn't know anything about Batman, that would just be like a fun teaser for the other people. Like they let you like have mystery about who he was.
Well,
and
I was
made it
wondering,
slow
do you
reveal.
guys think that that's an intentional misdirect? Because they use the names, and I feel like anybody who knows the Batman origin story enough to recognize that at that point in time when everyone in the world wasn't familiar with Batman's origin story would know that the kid's name isn't Jimmy and the dad's name isn't whatever she calls the dad. But like, so they kind of like, I always thought it was an intentional misdirect, but then when I was watching it this time, I was like, well, they go out of their way to use different names. So I wasn't sure if it was a misdirect or a homage.
I think that it's super intentional. I think
Well, yes, it's obviously intentional, but
right, yes. I think when Burton signed on and the public received that as, some of the information they were trying to convey is this is going to be darker. And I think when they were making it a theatrical motion picture release, I think the audience expected to see Bruce Wayne's parents get fucking killed in the movie. And I think they said, I think the audience, I think so.
Do you think the audience was super aware of the Batman origin story before this? Because I kind of doubt
I don't think
it.
so.
Yes, everyone knows. You're taught Batman's origin when you're about 1 or 2 years old.
But I think this is what made everyone know the Batman origin story.
Yeah, the popularity of this movie is what made this like a known fact among the general public. I think before this, I don't think it was common knowledge at all.
Well, it's like for the longest time, I thought that the Joker was the one who killed his parents.
Yeah.
Right.
They took liberties with
which
that.
is
that's
like
the other thing I was going to
sometimes.
say is that's the other thing I was going to say is when they made that choice, that decision, I think that was definitely part of it is we're going to tease for a long time this event that we are going to show. And, one way we can make that happen is if we do something else we want to do is build an even deeper personal connection with Joker and Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, I think it was a great choice to do that. I'm not like a purist. I don't care that they really like changed that,
Well, I think it's wrong.
I'm with
Joe
Matt.
Chill. Yeah.
I'm with Matt. It made sense to me. I think it's a good way to, especially when you're trying to like sort of launch a franchise. You don't know if you're even going to get a second movie out of this.
Yeah.
And you're certainly not. It's not even a sure thing this is going to be a hit. So you might as well lay all your cards on the table. Use your best villain. Make him integral to the main character's story.
It works because Joker is so well done as a character in this movie.
And I think Burton got narrative punch out of the Batman origin story when so many things like this are like, well, you know this origin story, so let's toss it off in the beginning of the movie. It's not something that's that important. But Batman, it was like a reveal. Like he goes and he lays some roses down, and then someone else has to figure out what's going on.
Well, have you seen Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice?
I actually haven't.
Okay,
I
well,
skipped
like
that.
when you watch that, it's going to be very obligatory that you see Bruce Wayne's origin story.
Isn't it? That's the one where he, like Martha, they.
Yes, that's the same movie.
Our moms have the same name. What the? Yeah.
Yeah, that's also like honestly of the many things I didn't like about Joker, was that we had to see this fucking origin story for like the billionth time. It's like, we know that this is, you know, like no Batman movie ever that is ever made again ever has to show like the pearls and the alley and the, you know, like we can just skip it. We all know it now. Like
this one needed it because
this one needed it.
This one comes in, and I really think this. I think this comes in assuming that you don't have to know anything about Batman. I mean, because the first images you see of Batman, you don't even see him clearly. He just like lowers down like this weird force in the background.
Yeah, and also like before this, I know the comics, I think in the 70s changed the color scheme a little bit, but what I knew of Batman, he wore blue, you know, like so even this whole Batman outfit, that the fact that it was all black was kind of like, ooh, wow, you know, like, oh, kind of, you know, a different take on this.
Well, so The Dark Knight Returns was in '86, and that's the
that's the Frank Miller one.
That's the Frank Miller one that like changed the rules of how Batman could be as a character, because
that was super violent and dark, right?
Yeah, it was really violent, and it just like, I mean, that and Watchmen came out in the same year, and both of those were like, comics can be more, and this feels more like a Batman before Dark Knight Returns. Like this feels like going off of the comics as Batman was before that. Whereas like when you get to Nolan stuff, that's like what Batman became in the comic books. It's almost like the movie version of Batman was like trailing behind how the comic books took it by a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think in the 80s that these graphic novels that we're referring to like really broke into the zeitgeist like they have now.
No.
You know, they existed back then, obviously, but I think in a small group of people that had no influence over like Hollywood.
Yeah, that was still nerd stuff.
They were big in the comic community, but yeah, that was not mainstream.
I love. Have you seen Mallrats? I love how they are super into this movie, 1989 Batman, in Mallrats, and they're definitely that part of the culture. You know, like Kevin Smith as Silent Bob and Jay. Well, he doesn't play Jay. You know what I'm saying. Going back to like
that wasn't a double role for him. I thought that was just some good, like it was
he's
like
just
Eddie
moving
Murphy
back and forth really
Eddie
fast.
Murphy's fat suit for the one, and then Kevin Smith actually looks like Jason Mewes, except that he puts on his Kevin Smith outfit to do Kevin Smith appearances.
Yeah, he's also that other guy too. Whatever. Anyways, going back to what we were talking about with telling the origin story is from watching the Batman the animated series. One of the best things you can do in a Batman story is rather than show the pearls and all that stuff over again, is make the right choices as far as him verbalizing the fact that his parents were murdered to another character, because Batman doesn't do that. He doesn't fucking talk about that shit. He just bees Batman. You know, and like those scenes, those moments are always excellent, you know, if you do it right. And,
I think in my mind, doing it right would just be like him suddenly bursting into tears and going, "My parents were murdered! Daddy! My life's been really hard. Okay. Just like dry heaving and sobbing as the Joker just sort of shakes his head sadly and is like, "No, guy, come on, stand up, buddy. It's okay." My parents.
Yeah, but that's why we need to see the Harris McCabe Batman. More crying,
exactly.
More scream crying,
way more crying, way
These
more
things
hysterical
aren't in
bat
movies
crying.
enough. Yeah, bat scream crying.
Yeah.
We're missing it. We're missing it so badly. We feel the loss.
That feather to the neck was not going to kill that guy.
Oh my god, I had the
throwing that out
exact same
there.
thought. Like it was like, oh.
Well, maybe it's poison.
Yeah.
I was just assuming it's poison.
But
I mean, the man works with chemicals. We know this.
And who are these mimes aiming at here?
And can we also, since we're talking about the scene where he has, the Joker has a group of mimes surround some political figure. It was the mayor, or
No, it was the gangster.
Yeah.
No,
It was the guy who tried to take over.
he claimed
Grissom's.
for Grissom had given it.
Oh, yeah.
So he has these mimes surround him and then shoots him in the neck with the feather. But also, those mimes, like, didn't try very hard to act like mimes. They were, like, walking around doing a weird, like robot walk. And that's not what mimes do.
Well,
Mimes
this is,
mime
once
things.
again, I think this is like the standard, it's the Lethal Weapon 3 question that we had of, does he hire construction workers who moonlight as goons, or does he hire goons and teaches them how to do construction? He obviously went the route of teaching his goons how to mime rather than hiring real good mimes and then teaching them how to be good goons.
I see.
Well,
that,
Harris, here's an example of like the thing I was talking about earlier, where they just wouldn't do it today. This movie takes a lot of jumps in time or in logic that don't make a lot of sense. So the Joker gets shot in the face and he falls into a vat of chemicals, and then goes to a plastic surgeon the next day or that same night.
That plastic surgeon scene's awesome. That's like one of the best.
I love that scene.
Yeah, I think he did a pretty good job.
Who are his other clients?
So then, and then he looks like the Joker, and he's got a whole new wardrobe and a bunch of goons suddenly that are all allegiant to him, and a whole bunch of marketing. They all have like Joker
they got
jackets,
the Joker branding on
the Joker
patches.
helicopter,
Custom embroidered patches. Love it.
Those jackets are so fucking good, so good.
Yep.
It's almost like you would join the gang just for the jacket. Like
I'm sure a lot of them did.
All of his minions looked so excited to be part of it.
Oh my god!
Imagine your boss just being like, "All right, we're all gonna dress up as mimes, and then we'll," and they're just like, "Yeah, all right, look at me miming."
I kind of always wanted to mime. My parents laughed at me and made me get into gooning, but I always wanted to mime.
Yeah, there's something about the fact that he's like extremely insane and murdering a lot of people, and he kind of inherited a lot of these guys. They already worked in crime. They didn't really have a lot of other options. But if you're gonna be that insane to where your employees know that they could be murdered at any second in any kind
possibly
of way,
by you,
you want to give them a sweet package. Yeah, possibly by you, of course. Yeah, you want to give them the jackets. You want to make it fun, and Joker makes things fun.
You got to incentivize him a little bit. Yeah.
So this brings up the question, like, between becoming the Joker and premiering himself to the world and doing all this stuff, like, how much time did the Joker spend on, like, designing his outfits and painting the cars and acquiring a big purple helicopter with his face painted
How did
on
he
it?
learn how to intercept like television signals?
Yeah, exactly. And
Who's to say he's not really, really, really good at delegating?
I mean, the video that he puts, like, when he announces, all these beauty products or all these whatever products that are all over the place will kill you.
Joker products!
It's, like, super well produced and edited, and he has, like, multiple sets and scenes. So
it's good production value.
You think he had a whole film crew that was like, all right, let's take a cut on that. Joker, that cardboard cutout's in your sight line.
Because you don't get fired from Joker's crew, you just get murdered from it. So
Yeah,
you
you
have
get
to
killed.
keep going.
But unlike the mime crew, I think that's an occasion where he probably hired filmmakers and then inducted them into his gang rather than took gang members and tried to teach them how to make movies. I feel like he mixed it up a little bit. He wasn't always going to go with one route with this. Sometimes he was promoting from within. Sometimes he was outsourcing some of these jobs.
Yeah, there's nothing saying that he's not also a master of delegation and finding labor resources within his own resources. He clearly did a great job with Bob until he murdered him. Bob is one of my favorite characters. I think he does a great job as a character. I think the actor is doing a great job. He's the number one guy. What can you say?
He is number one guy.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, all right, do you guys want to talk about Jack Nicholson as the Joker, or do you want to talk about some of the side characters?
Bob, yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about Bob.
It's so good.
We've said, like,
That guy
most
killed it.
of what Bob does. He's just number one guy. And
Tracy
then he
Walter.
dies.
Tracy Walter. We've seen him in other stuff. He's been in a million things. I don't remember any of them right now.
Yeah, there's
but
something else that he's in that I know of. I can't remember what it is.
we
though.
can find it. He's in Conan the Destroyer, the sequel to Conan
Wow.
the Barbarian. Is that it?
Oh, who is he in that?
He's like the drunken, weird little guy that travels with them.
Oh my god, he's like the Wizard Man.
He's Cookie in City Slickers, also with Jack Palance, who's in this movie.
Oh hell yeah, this guy rules.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great side characters. There's Jack Palance. There's Jerry Hall. There's obviously Bob.
Harvey
There's,
Dent, played by Billy D.
Williams.
Yep.
Surprisingly small role for how much he's, like, set up right at the beginning as, like, being a big deal that he's just, like, been elected.
Well, he was supposed to be. They had a plan for him being Two-Face in the sequel. That was the intention.
Yeah, they had to pay him out.
I think about that all the time. all the time, I think, what would Billy D. Williams' Two-Face be? And I wish so badly I could have seen it.
Yeah.
I think about it way more than anyone should.
You bring it up a lot.
I should be thinking about other things, but I think about that. You know, it's weird.
Yeah. Yep. Did you guys know that?
Such a long
did you guys know that? Did you guys know that Sean Young was originally cast in the Vicky Vale role, and then she had to bail like a week before she started because she was in a horse riding accident?
Yeah, she fell off a horse, right? Yeah.
Fucking Sean Young, just Sean Young's. All of Sean Young's reasons are sad.
I love Sean Young. I think she would have done a great job.
We've covered that extensively.
Yes.
We have covered it already, which is sad.
And we're probably going to talk about it in the
saved
next episode too, so let's just
I'm
leave
sure we'll
so
talk about it
much.
again.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Kim Basinger was hired on a Friday, and she had to be on set in London on Monday. So she hopped on a plane, and she was in this movie without really knowing much about it. But I think she does a pretty good job in this too. Yeah,
it was kind of like not a star-making performance because she was already kind of a known quantity at this point, but it definitely elevated her as an actress.
Like
at this point
the fact
career.
that she did this and Never Say Never Again means like she'll never have to do anything again for me to like be like you're fucking great. I mean, Never Say Never Again. Come on, one of the greatest video game scenes in any movie ever. Am I wrong?
A true classic. I still laugh when I think about Sean Connery flinging himself sideways out of that chair after pretending to get electrocuted. It's the best.
What was that? What was the game? Global Domination or something?
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah.
And there are no rules, and none of it makes any sense. And you grab these controllers and you jerk them around, and sometimes you get electrocuted, and you have to throw yourself out of the chair. Those are the rules of the game.
God, why can't I buy that video game for like PlayStation? I don't get it.
I don't know.
I want the Joker's Ghetto Blaster so badly.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
My favorite scene is on right now. It's the one where they go to the museum, the Flugelheim.
Yeah,
man.
Flugelheim. I wanted Flugelheim mentioned. Thank you, Matt. Thank you so much.
That's your
I
favorite
love the
scene?
Flugelheim. Them just going around like, haha, we're defacing art because we're evil.
With Party Man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
Party
Man. And every single piece of art there is like world famous. It's like this is not a local community museum. This is the most established museum in the entire world. But also the art is just sitting there where they eat. You know, like it's just in the restaurant.
Another
of
great
the museum.
example of his henchmen just being like so enthusiastic about doing everything he's gonna do. They're just pumped.
The boombox guy. He's having
He's
the time
into
of
it.
his fucking life.
And the guy who's like doing the hand paintings on the the Vermeer or whatever the hell that one is, where he's like doing patty cake on it, and he's like doing it to the beat of Party Man. He's dancing and slapping paint on things. My question was, the Joker stops Bob from cutting up the Francis Bacon painting, and says, "Let's leave this one." But I mean, did Bob pass that down the chain of command? Because I feel like that painting's still in danger.
The next
of
guy
all the
just
other
rips
super
it up.
enthusiastic goons like painting it and being like really fucking up.
I think when you're gooning for Joker, you always have one eye on Joker. Like
That's
you're not
smart.
going to stop
Yeah.
him from killing you, but like you're
point.
going to at least know you're getting killed, you know?
Good. At least you'll know why.
Yeah.
I want to point out just like a piece of extra acting that for some reason caught my eye when I was watching this. The first waiter who goes down when the gas comes out just like does this big like boom and like throws himself onto the table and rows off, and I loved it.
He was committed.
Did you notice that there's a couple quick shots of the people who were sitting and eating actually like pieing themselves in the face with the desserts that they have in front of them?
Yeah,
Classic.
and it's great too because they're like they basically they apparently were given the direction that like they had to like pass out quickly because they literally like look around and notice the gas and then almost immediately just smash their faces into their plates.
Yeah, it definitely looks like they were sat down with like a piece of cake in front of them, and then the director told them, "Okay, you have to pass out now," and they were like, "Oh, can I go left? Can I go right? Can I?"
No.
And he was like,
No.
"No, I don't think you understand. I don't think you're taking direction right now."
No, in fact, if your nose isn't bloody at the end of this, you have failed.
Well, you know, one thing that was just obvious throughout the entire movie is Tim Burton's really good with just like setting up little bits of visual comedy the entire time.
Yeah.
Like more than there are jokes written into the script, like Joker says jokes, but I think the vast majority of the comedy in this movie comes from the way he decides to set things up, the way he decides to frame it, or how he like places people in these ridiculous situations. And things like people face planting into their food is exactly that sort of thing.
I think you're absolutely right. I also think it's kind of weird how much at the charity event the Gothamites are enjoying gambling so much. Commissioner Gordon is really like throwing the craps,
and he's not saying anything about what he's gambling. They just keep passing him the dice back, and he goes throwing
he just
it
rolls
again
over and over again. There's no bets placed. He's just rolling over and over.
He just likes the dice. He just likes to roll the dice. No, I think it's a good point, because that is really Tim Burton. I mean, that's probably why he got this gig, because his movies are funny. I mean, his like prime era Tim Burton movies are all funny.
Big Fish.
Yeah, Big Fish is funny. Pee-wee's Big Adventure is really a funny movie. But if you look at Pee-wee's Big Adventure, that probably informed this as much as Beetlejuice did. It's not dark, obviously, but the visual gags and the visual humor and the action that's in that movie is very sophisticated. And he is a very good action director. He's not known as an action... Like, I think the two Batman movies are anomalies in his oeuvre, in that they're the only sort of action movies that he's done. But all of his movies are kind of action movies in a way. They all involve big action sequences and action set pieces and action, and like you said, visual gags that are very action oriented and have to be cut and shot in a certain way.
Harris, why don't you use the word oeuvre in every podcast episode?
I try. This is
it should be used. Yes,
I do my best. I'm trying.
I think he's good with the camera, and I think that he like is really aware of stuff. I was not super impressed with the fight choreography in this movie in a lot of scenes, and I think that's one of the things that feels kind of dated to me. And it's mostly because it always looks like Batman can't turn his head.
Yes. Yeah.
And that is the case.
That's the real complaint with the fight choreography. They had to choreograph fights in a way that somebody could fight without actually moving. So it's all like, it's like the backwards hand punch.
Right.
And and the hitting the guy in the crotch with that weird extension thing that seems only designed to hit a guy with daggers on his boots in the crotch.
It felt like Batman's kryptonite in this movie was like coming at him from the back or side.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
I also felt like in the fight scenes, the Foley is just super loud compared to what I think I'm usually used to. It's just like I'm really hearing those whaps and slaps, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yep. But the editing, on the other hand, was, I thought, really good in spite of that. Like, the choreography might not have been good, but like my understanding of the spatial awareness of everything that was going on, like you never didn't get a moment. And even stuff like, in the museum scene where they have that moment where the Joker covers his face and he's going, "Oh, what a world," and rubbing his makeup off, and then he turns around and says, "Boo." You get like 4 quick cuts there that tell the story of him pulling his face off, turning around, surprising her being scared, him yelling "boo," but every one of them is readable. Like the editing, it's Ray Lovejoy, who did 2001: A Space Odyssey and Aliens and The Shining and Monkey Trouble, of course, was also the editor here. And I just think did a phenomenal job of making every action legible in some tricky places where not everyone would have.
I don't understand the geography or architecture of the chemical plant at all, but I don't think I'm supposed to.
Yeah, the chemical plant was the most like impressionistic of everything there.
Yeah.
Like that was the one that was like, oh, there's smoke all over the place and big bubbling vats wherever you need them. And at one point, he just goes around like throwing switches and flipping levers just to make it all like chaos and hell and stuff.
They even like put a bunch of corrosion on a lot of those where it looked like it was like almost growing mushrooms or something. Like just
the art direction was great.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say we're kind of moving in the direction towards my favorite element of this movie, and the element that won an Academy Award, which is the art direction, production design of this movie.
Easily the best part of the movie. And I mean,
it's insane. I mean, like, they built an entire city practically. It's like probably the biggest set of its time. Up to that point, I don't know if sets had been built this big probably since like Cleopatra or something. But yeah, it's just awesome. Like, going back to what you said earlier, Colin, that you're happy that this movie is in Gotham City and not New York. I watched the commentary, and Tim Burton actually said that early on there were discussions like where they should set this movie, and should they make a Gotham City, or should they just basically make it New York? Right. And they were like, no, what makes this stand apart is that, Gotham City is its own like unique thing, and we should strive to build that. And I'm really glad that they did, because it's totally unique. And I kind of like this. I don't like the direction that they take it later on. And then in the Nolan movies, like, yeah, I guess it's cool for like, practicality and
gritty
and
realism.
To make it feel real.
Yeah,
realism.
Gotham is weird because it almost feels like, instead of it being like an American city, it feels like it's like an ancient European city that like grew up and became a like skyscrapery New York density sort of city, because it's still got all this like crazy vestiges of like Gothic Renaissance eras and stuff like that.
It's also like, what year does this movie take place in? Is it the 1940s? Is it 1989? It's a mixture of styles, and like you can't place the time, which makes it timeless.
I think part of the idea of what Gotham City is that it's infested with crime, right? But it's part of the reasoning behind that is that it has peaked already. Like they already reached the heights of opulence and wealth and stuff like that they could have in this city, and corruption and things started to go wrong. And like that mirrors like Bruce's vision of his parents as these like perfect people who were gunned down, all that stuff. And like that's part of like, you have to build that world, and that's what makes it like better to me than just like saying, oh, like Gotham's just like New York or whatever, and he just fights crime, or like that's like build something, like make something, create.
Yeah. Well, we should mention the production designer is a guy named Anton First, who that's First with a U.
So let me tell you a little bit about him. I did some research.
Good.
So this was only like the 4th or 5th movie that he was the production designer on.
Wasn't his first?
He didn't have a very long career.
Get it? His name is First.
Yeah.
His name is
Harris,
First
do
with
you
a
have
U.
his IMDb?
No. Yes, I do. What do you want to know?
So
what were the movies that he did before this?
So wait, who is
in the Company of Wolves? Was the big two were in the Company of Wolves, the Neil Jordan movie that was like I don't know if you guys have ever seen that. It's like a werewolf movie, but it's like a fairy tale werewolf movie. It's really fucking weird. And Full Metal Jacket.
So, some obscure film.
I've seen that.
He'd only done like 6 or 7 movies. In the Company of Wolves Burton wanted him to do Beetlejuice for that, but couldn't get him because he was booked on something else.
Yeah, so he won the Academy Award for Batman, and then that was in 1990 was the ceremony, and a year later, he committed suicide.
Yikes!
Yeah, jumped off a parking garage or something, right?
Shit.
He jumped off a building. Yeah.
He was a troubled man, but very talented. But yeah, I guess he was taking some kind of drug that was like a prescription drug, but that side effects include like depression and drowsiness and all these other weird things. And so
he was at a party, I read, and he said, "Oh, I'm going to step out and go get some cigarettes." And they were like, "Okay, cool." And he left, and instead he went up to the roof and jumped off.
Which is like a terrible way to end a party.
So wait,
yeah.
And you said this is before Batman Returns, so he could have potentially been on Batman Returns. Is that?
I think they wanted him for Batman Returns, but he was unavailable. He did some other movie right after Batman, and that was his. Oh, I know what it was. It was Awakenings.
Right. Yeah, with De Niro.
And that was his last
Robin
movie.
Williams. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's super sad.
Yeah,
It
pretty
is.
tragic.
He did a really good job here.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and he went out as an Oscar winner for this movie, so
Yeah.
good for him.
As far as I'm concerned, he's second to none. Is that wrong?
It's good. No.
Well, his name's First.
Come on.
I mean, you could just say
come on.
he's
I get
first.
it.
I'm sorry, like to whoever out there is missing him. I don't mean to impugn his legacy or disrespect his name. I'm just making a little joke, and we all miss him because this was a great movie and he did a great job.
The more you explain it, the less the pun is fun.
There's so much to unpack about this movie. I feel like we've just like kind of scratched the surface.
Oh,
here.
definitely.
Let's talk about Prince.
Oh yeah, let's
Yes.
talk about Prince.
Party
so
man.
Prince did a whole record. He was hired to like do one song, I think, and then ended up recording like 8 and just put out a whole Batman album.
Yep.
And every time like a Prince song kicks in, you're just like, this scene's gonna be pretty good.
Yeah,
It's,
it's actually it's not a bad Prince album as Prince albums go. It's definitely not one of his best, but it's somewhere in the middle of the pack. It's not as weird and experience. This is like classic. This is prime era Prince, where like nothing he did was bad. Everything was kind of funky and good, and at a certain level. And Bat Dance is actually and probably the best song on the album, which that was the one song they didn't want to use at all for the movie.
I really like Trust. It really makes that parade scene really work for me.
I have a major issue with that, and it's the mix, because it doesn't sound like it's actually playing at the parade. It sounds like it's playing on the soundtrack, and yet people are dancing around like they can hear it. And I'm like, no, this is clearly a clean recording that's playing on the soundtrack, and not actually like they didn't mix it so it sounded like it was
That's
real.
not a problem for me. After the Joker has hijacked so many broadcasts with like so many insane
You think that
video
he's
technical
hijacking
tricks.
the movie that he's in and breaking the fourth
Yeah.
wall? And
That would be very characteristic of him.
That would make a lot of
it's
sense.
very meta for this movie, but
Well, he does. He does in a couple situations, like do these big showy scenes when there's nobody watching but the audience. Like after he kills the guy with the hand buzzer, he does this whole like, "Ha! I'm so evil. I'm gonna talk to you," and
That's
it's just for
unnecessary.
our benefit. And I
that
love
was
it,
such
but-
a weird scene where he's having this conversation with this guy, and I was like first of all, the scene before that where he's laughing about dismissing them, and then the camera just sort of holds on him while he like talks to himself for a second, and then I'm like, why are they holding on him for so long in this shot? And then it cuts, and I'm like, wait, they're not even cutting to a new scene. They're cutting to just 5 feet away, and he's going to walk over and talk to the corpse. Such a bizarre. It's one of the few choices in this movie that I was like, what were they thinking? But
That scene used to scare me when I was a kid.
A lot of
the
this movie
corpse.
used to scare me when I was a kid. That scene, especially the plastic surgeon scene, terrified me when I was young.
It's so
First
good.
time I saw this, I almost stopped watching the movie. I had to like pause it and like convince myself that I would be able to go to bed without nightmares and then resume.
Well, so Matt was saying earlier that like if we wanted to talk about like Nicholson's scene, I think him talking to the dead person scene and like around there, it like you could tell he wasn't phoning it in. Like he was going all out in his Joker performance.
In the commentary, Tim Burton says that Jack Nicholson like really ran with the character and like would make he would only do like on average like 5 or 6 takes of everything, and he said that Jack Nicholson would give something like slightly different every time, but he would make all these like weird little noises and like giggle to himself, and like sometimes he would just go off on like improvisations, and like he loved it, and he would just roll on everything, and like that's clearly what that is. Like he just kept going, talking to that like dead body, and there's just like, we have to leave this.
The best one is the one where he's like, wait till they get a load of me, and then it's just like it just sits there on him. He goes, whoa, whoa,
Whoa. Yeah.
What's that? Like, what is that? It's so weird. It works so well.
And you gotta love anytime a character is the type of character where he sees something on a TV he doesn't like, he destroys the TV.
He goes through so many TVs.
Gotta love it.
Yeah. I was gonna ask if because I had always sort of understood this to be a paycheck movie for him. It's like a really weird point in his career, because it's at this stage where he's like, you can tell he's like heavier, and his hair is really thinning up top, and he's not like the handsome young man that he was. So he's sort of aged out of the roles that made him famous. And he works steadily in the 80s in like, terms of endearment and all these other, like he's got his 80s, resume is impressive, but he was working in a little less prestigious stuff. And he seemed to be in this awkward stage where he couldn't be a young, handsome leading man, but he wasn't quite old enough to be like the older guy that he became, like the more patriarchal figure. So it's like a really awkward point in his career. But I always thought this was a paycheck movie for him. And watching it, I was like,
And how?
well, if it was, he was
Yeah.
fully committed to it. Like, you would not tell by the performance. He went all out. Now, he's chewing the scenery like crazy, but it's what the role demands.
But he
you know?
earned his paycheck.
Well, do you guys know like how much he got paid for this movie?
A
Do you know
lot.
the story behind that?
I can only imagine they backed up the Brinks truck for that one.
Well, his deal was unique in that, like, so now it's pretty commonplace that big actors will take less pay up front in exchange for like a little percentage on the back end kind of thing of the gross of the movie. Jack Nicholson didn't want to do this movie at first. He had to be convinced, and they went back and forth with agents like and deals and stuff. And they finally got him by basically saying like, you can do whatever the hell you want, and you know, we'll pay you a big check up front. I don't remember how much he got paid up front. I want to say like 10 million or something. And he got like a huge percentage of the back end gross and the merchandise gross.
Wow.
For the
God.
character of the Joker. So if the Joker appears in any other property, he gets a cut of that. And I think that's to this day.
Damn.
So now I want to look up his filmography and see if he worked less after this, because that was clearly a sort of potentially career-ending performance in that he never had to work for anything again. You know, like he was already a wealthy man, but he was pretty much set for money after this, huh?
It said that he made between $50 and $60 million just off this movie
Wow.
alone.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
And he still collects like, you know, royalty checks, obviously.
Yeah. That's something. Well, good deal for him.
And those suits.
It was a unique time in Hollywood that those deals weren't commonplace. So they were sort of like, and no one expected this movie to do as well as it did. So he kind of like got lucky, you know, in that sense that if it was just a run of the mill movie that was mediocre, he still would have made a lot of money, but not nearly as much as the like exorbitant amount that he netted.
Yeah.
And so after that, now these deals are a little more, you know, streamlined. They've got him down to a science kind of thing, but he was one of the first.
Well, one thing, a story I'd always heard. I don't know how confirmable all this is, but everyone says that Jack Nicholson talked to Heath Ledger at one point and was like, "Oh yeah, the Joker. That's a role that'll like really mess with your head. Like you'll get too deep into that or something like that." And I always thought that was interesting watching this movie because as much as he puts a ton into it, his Joker's not all that complex a person. Like, he's just super evil and super creative about being evil. It's not what the Joker, like, has become in popular culture, where it's like, ooh, the Joker is the embodiment of evil without, you know, it's like almost badness and criminality that's taken form on its own to counteract Batman. This was just like, you're a bad criminal guy, and you
crazy
go
asshole.
crazy. And it was fun, but it's just like it's not this like psychologically complex profile, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of a simple-minded character in a lot of ways. He's got a great laugh, though. I think the laugh really works.
Definitely.
And the other big thing about it, I always heard was notable, was that the thing he had to put in his mouth to hold the makeup and make his smile freeze in that shape like that was actually like incredibly painful to wear, and he had it on for like hours a day.
That sucks.
Yeah.
It's not inside his mouth. It's like a prosthetic on the outside of his mouth.
But
right?
there, I think it's two parts. I think there is something inside of his mouth as well, and that was like incredibly
it has
painful.
to hold his cheeks back away from his teeth.
It's basically like forcing his mouth wider, and just like when you get at the corners of your mouth, basically like you don't have the same stretch.
Yeah, it looks like when you go to the dentist and they have to like put those things in your mouth to keep it open, and it's like really uncomfortable and it can tear at the corners of your mouth. And then on top of that, he's probably got a shit ton of makeup on his face. So,
there's a couple times when he like yells, and you can kind of see that.
You know the scene when he comes in for the first time, revealing his face out of the shadows, and he kills Jack Palance.
Yep.
There's something that always bothered me, and upon viewing it recently, I realized finally what it was. On his neck, he's got that purple mark.
Yeah.
I did not notice this.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got like a purple, it looks like purple paint. It's like on his neck. And I'm always wondering, like, why is there a purple spot? Like, how did they miss that? What is that from? You know, his hair is green, his face is white. What's purple? And I finally realized this time that the jacket that he's wearing, which is what he fell into the acid with, he's like spray painted it purple or painted it purple somehow. So he's like, it's sort of like an early version of what his costume eventually becomes. But he like overnight like just like slapped some purple paint on it, I guess. Or whatever.
Yeah, because it was
But
like
I actually really like that.
Yeah, the suit was maroon, but he clearly like handmade, you know, like kind of because it looks really distressed and messed up, and you know,
Yeah,
And
exactly.
the suit's just like evidence that he was already like going in the direction of this Joker character, and he was just like, might as well accelerate the process when he falls into that acid. I mean, he even has like his lucky deck of cards, and he spends time looking at the Joker with the Vegas hole poke through it and stuff as he wears his purple suits.
I thought they did a good job of incorporating like the classic Joker gags of like the joy buzzer and the acid flower
Chatter teeth.
and the chatter teeth.
Yeah.
Like they had all these elements in there that somehow didn't seem cheesy. They just seemed like with this eccentric character, it was like, oh yeah, you kind of made him work, you know?
Yeah. The chatter teeth thing I love because it suggests that he like set that up. Like he was like, oh, at some point he'll punch me in the stomach, and then I can just spew these teeth out, and it'll be a great gag.
Yeah.
That idea that he's just always holding all this like extra crap that's just little gags for
fake
his
hand.
own amusement. Yeah. Is so funny, like so Joker, like so like, you know, and like those things are not evil, but when the character's evil, it's like so much more evil. It's like, oh God.
Yeah.
The same goes for Batman's utility belt. It's like, how much shit can he possibly hold?
Right.
He just happens to have like everything he needs all the time, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
You said you weighed 108 pounds? What the fuck was that about?
Definitely called her fat. This is after he got her drunk and had sex with her when he was sober. Like, I mean, you could tell that Bruce Wayne's not a player, but only because his butler totally blows up his spot in the morning. If he was doing this regularly with women, Alfred would know better. He'd be like, "Oh yeah, we're going away on a long trip. Probably will never see you again."
A rare Alfred misstep.
Yeah, exactly.
Or maybe it wasn't. Maybe he wanted to.
Maybe it wasn't.
out
Could have been
Bruce, you know?
intentional. Yeah.
Well, again, we don't know that he wasn't just totally present in the room at all times.
Yeah, I think
for
so.
all of it, so we don't
Just
know.
they wake up and it's like he's Batman, Bruce Wayne spooning Vicky Vale, and Alfred spooning Bruce.
So is this Danny Elfman's like greatest work? Is this his triumph or what?
I mean, I think it's his most iconic work.
I think the greatest work he ever did was becoming fully human after spending his life as an elf man. That's so dumb. What the hell? Harris, why you say that?
I think of everything Danny Elfman has done, this is probably the one that most people would recognize, except like maybe The Simpsons.
Oh yeah, I forgot he did The Simpsons. Beetlejuice is a pretty good one too.
I think Beetlejuice is his best. I can listen to that score just like, you know, just it's so
Best
like
or not?
operatic and dramatic.
What I'm saying though
and it goes.
is that if you went to someone and you hummed a bit from Beetlejuice,
Oh yeah, sure.
I bet a lot of people would be like,
it would be The
"What's that
Simpsons
from?"
and then this.
But
Yeah.
this is iconic. Like, this is part of culture now. Like, the Batman, it was so iconically Batman that it's been reused tons and tons of time.
It's almost like the Superman theme. You can't make a new Batman theme because this is the Batman theme.
Yeah.
Why would you make a new one? This is
Exactly.
it, you know?
They tried.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do think, and it's like the same way that like, no matter how old it gets or how bad the movie is, every time that John Williams Superman score comes on, I'm like, fuck yeah, Superman time.
Superman.
Every time I hear this Batman score, I'm like, oh, that's good. That's sweet. That's what I want to hear.
Every time I hear the Superman score, I always think of one thing. It's just like the idea of just like a really big Superman fan seeing Superman on opening day in a theater that is like mostly empty, and just like basically when the theme comes on, he's like da, 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 da. Da, da, da. And then when it gets to that part, he just stands up in the theater and goes, Superman!
This is a pretty elaborate thing that you think of every time.
Every
you hear the
time.
Superman theme. I don't know if I'd have time to think of that every time.
I have no words.
That's just what I think of.
Oh my God,
It's
Colin.
a long and winding road to nowhere with Colin.
Yeah.
Well, you know, like every once in a while, like when I was younger, you know, I've been to Oklahoma many times, and you overhear someone saying something in the accent, and it just is uncontrollably hilarious.
Again,
I'm
it just
reminded
gets
of-
worse when you explain it. Let's just leave it a beautiful mystery. That what the hell is Colin talking about? It's better to just leave it at that. That's a rhetorical question, Colin. We don't actually want to know.
I'm reminded of a time I went to a lake, and it was very clearly a lake.
Is this
and
still about
kid-
Superman?
No. And this kid was out on an inner tube, or like a tube, you know, just kind of floating out in the lake, which had no waves or anything. And he just screams at his friend, "You're going to leave me way out here in the middle of the ocean." It just sounded so stupid.
And then Batman saved him.
I know, yeah. Yeah, whatever. I'm sorry, you know, to all my fans from Oklahoma who think I'm making fun of your accent. It's just, it does sound funny sometimes. I think we can all admit that.
You're addressing the audience again. You've never addressed the audience so much to apologize for things in any podcast. I don't know who the hell you're talking to. We only have like 6 listeners,
like shit.
and they all think you're insane anyway. So
Near the end of the podcast, Colin can do a quick apology for apologizing so much.
yeah, I just need a
We'll just
blanket
get it kind of
apology
like
from
looped
Colin
around.
at the end. Yeah.
Colin, when I used to work for the Tonight Show as a page, my one of my like main things I had to do was they had like a ticket office, and people would call every day, like trying to get tickets to the Tonight Show, and they would call from all over the country. How do I get tickets? How much do they cost? Like, what do I have to do? Where do I have to mail in or whatever? And one time, this woman called, and I answered the phone, Tonight Show, and she's like, "Hi, yeah. How do I get tickets to the light show?" And I was like, the light show? What's the light show?
The light
and
show.
she said it over and over. The light show.
The light
show. And I was like, "Ma'am, I don't know what the hell you're talking about." And then I finally realized with her accent that she was asking about the late show. And I asked her like where she was from, and I just felt really embarrassed that I didn't know what she was saying.
Matt just kept on saying, "I can sell you tickets to the gun show, but I can't sell you tickets to the light show."
The light show.
The Light Show. Yeah. I was watching Light Show, and it wasn't even Johnny Carson. Is he still around? I don't know. I'm sorry.
He dead?
He was good. What was the thing with the turban? Karnak, is that right?
Karnak, yeah. The great.
I always liked that. That was like super funny to me. I think it's culturally insensitive at this point, but
Definitely.
yeah.
To gypsy culture.
Yeah. Probably.
All right. Can we talk about the movie again? Anybody got any favorite lines that you want to
Oh my God, there's so many.
You're my number one. The guy.
Which one? The one that Jack Palance says, or the one that Jack Nicholson imitates?
Just
Jack
all of
Palance?
them.
They're both good.
I love
Both
both.
of them. Yeah.
So this was a minor line. I don't know why this like struck me as really funny, but Eckhart, when they're going into the chemical plant, goes to everyone. He's like, "All right,
they're drinking
shoot
Drano?
to kill, if you know what I mean," as though he just like said something subtle.
Yeah.
He was like, "Let's make sure he doesn't get away from us, if you know what I mean." But he doesn't. He says, "Kill him."
We should murder this
you
guy,
guys-
if you get my meaning. Wink, wink.
Ah, wink, wink, nod, nod. Kill him.
Did you guys also hear Eckhart earlier in the film say, "They're drinking Drano"?
No, you got to do it in the Eckhart voice though, which is even deeper than the Batman voice. They're drinking Drano.
They're drinking Drano.
Did you guys notice that the first Eckhart scene, he's like totally ADR?
No, I didn't catch
That's the scene I'm talking about, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I think
I
so.
think so, yeah.
Yeah.
His voice is like clearly not coming from him. Anyway, sorry.
Did you guys
Harris,
know
go
that
ahead.
Eckhart is Porkins from Star Wars?
Yes.
Oh shit!
Yeah. he is definitely Porkins.
Wow, what a porker.
Which is really exciting.
Truly exciting.
So one another line that's Colin and I have discussed a couple times because it is just definitely one of the best lines in the movie is when the Joker says, "What exactly is it? It's never rub another man's rhubarb," which is like, what the hell does that mean? They just give him all sorts of like crazy phrases to say, and I like that.
I love the one where he's on TV and he's doing the press conference about how he's going to give away the money, and he's like talking about Grissom, and he's like, he was a thief and a terrorist. On the other hand, he had a tremendous singing voice.
That's really good. I like that one.
And for some reason, you know what? I always like the line that Jack Palance says when he's like, "That's all, gentlemen. Thank you, gentlemen. That's all." I always think of that like whenever a meeting's wrapping up. I want to say that, but I can never remember where it's from, and it's from this movie apparently.
One of
That's great.
Vicky Vale's early lines is when she's I always forget his name. Who's the other reporter
Knox.
who works?
We call him Arliss around here.
Knox.
He,
Robert
Knox,
Wool.
yeah.
So she's just like, I like bats, and it's like this weird, super sexual way of saying it, and I'm just like, wait, does she even know he's like a guy saving people at this point?
Yeah.
Like she was just going in and being like, whatever this thing is, I'm gonna fuck it.
She's really into like flying marsupials. That's her
Human,
thing.
creature, doesn't matter.
She was considering like if it was a man-sized bat or even a half man-sized bat, she was gonna fuck it
As long as it had
some kind of
man-sized
bestiality.
genitals.
She was gonna think that.
That's what she wanted.
It's also
Man size
weird.
or tiny. She could work with tiny.
It's also weird. The first thing Knox says to her, what is it like? Hey, legs, or
Hello,
great legs, or
legs.
something.
Yeah,
Wait.
he just says hello legs because that's all he
Yeah.
says.
Hello, leg.
That felt very dated. as well.
Yeah,
It's like,
but I did feel like, despite that, I think it's partly Robert Wool's performance there, is that he manages to be like flirty and a wise ass without being creepy and annoying, which I think he's like that character could definitely in other hands could have been much worse. But
Yeah,
like
it's a little it's weird almost. Like she's definitely the boss, but he's like saying stuff that like I think would cross the line if you said it.
Well, she's not
if
really
a lot
the
of people
boss.
said
They're,
it.
She's a
they're
coworker.
partners, but yeah.
well, I know, but I mean, like she's
definitely
like
in
the
charge.
boss in the
Yeah, she has-
relationship. Yeah.
yeah.
It feels to me like, well, I think it's pretty well known that Tim Burton didn't want the character of Knox in this movie, but that was sort of a studio note. Like, you know, they needed him as sort of like the guy who like moves the story along in the beginning.
Yeah.
He's so much in the beginning of this movie and then sort of like disappears as the movie progresses. And then at the end,
Except they gave him his
You
heroic
just-
moment.
well, he gets knocked out.
Yeah, but
and then
well,
that's
first he
it. That's
saves
the
a bunch
last
of
you see
people's
them.
lives. Like they
Yeah,
give him
he
a
does.
moment where he like risks his life to save a bunch of people and fight thugs with a baseball bat, and then Vicky Vale apparently intentionally tries to kill him with a car.
That was
because I
weird.
couldn't. He jumps in the hood of the car and she continues driving at max speed and flying around a corner until she launches him off the car and knocks him unconscious,
I
which had to be
stopped and
intentional.
rewound it because I wasn't sure it was him. I was like, why is she doing this to him?
Yeah, why does she hate him all of a sudden? She
Aren't
put
they
up with his
friends?
sexual harassment for so long, and now
I
she's
put up
going to
with
get
your
upset
shit for
about
far
it?
too
Yeah,
long.
exactly.
I've only known you for 2 days.
One element I do like about him is he's like kind of disdainful of Bruce Wayne in sort of like a fuck it kind of way. And when he sees that Bruce Wayne was listening to them the whole time, instead of being like, I didn't mean to, he's just like, oh, hey, can you give me a grant? And I was like, yeah, I like this guy. He's just like, he's earning it. And then as soon as Bruce Wayne leaves, after saying, yeah, I give this guy a grant, he's like, this guy's kind of a dick, right?
Yeah, what an asshole. Yeah, I think I was kind of watching this. I was reminded that Robert Wool, in his weird own little way, is kind of charming. And the only thing I know him from other than this is the HBO show Arliss. And I just don't know why he didn't have any kind of like he's like kind of a poor man's Albert Brooks. I don't know why he didn't have more supporting actor roles other than this.
I have not seen Arliss, so I can't weigh in on that one.
Yeah, it's not on our list of things to watch.
Okay. That's all right. That's all right. That's good. I'll accept that. But to your point, Matt, in the original script, he was supposed to do research and discover Bruce Wayne's real identity, and then blackmail Bruce Wayne for money, and then he was going to be killed in the crowd during the parade. So he was kind of like had a heel turn and ended up being a bad guy. And
Is it possible that he was killed in the crowd during the parade? We don't know about the secondhand effects of the gas and how
we
far
see him
the
at
gas
we see
was
him in like the
spread.
second to last shot of the movie, so I
Yeah,
think he
he's-
survives.
He
My
shows
bad.
up again.
But I wanted to go back to the knife wielding goon and the two goons and the three goons in the belfry.
And wait, knife wielding, do we mean the double samurai sword?
Yes, the
wielding
double
goon, or we-
samurai sword goon that he fights in the alley with Vicky Vale, and the three goons in the belfry, because they are all in the movie for a very specific reason, and it ties into why Arliss
Toys?
is a good guy and not a bad guy as he was originally scripted to be.
Oh.
And
Toys? Is it action figures?
no, No, it's dumber than that. The reason is that one of the producers on this movie is a man named John Peters. And John Peters, if you don't know, has one of the most interesting stories in the history of Hollywood. He is a fascinating character. He started off as a hairdresser. He started working for his parents' hair salon in Beverly Hills, and was famous as like a playboy and kind of like dated all these women, and ended up making a wig for Barbra Streisand at some point for a movie role. And they fell in love and were together for several years. Now, before this, he was already married to Leslie Ann Warren, a famous actress. So he's already been like, he just dated starlets and married actresses, and that was his thing. But he somehow got his hooks into Barbra Streisand and ended up producing one of her albums. And there's a lot of questions about whether he actually did anything or whether he just got credit and money for producing the album. And producing the movie A Star Is Born, which there's a lot of documentation that he did very little actual producing on it, and just sort of was around and finagled his way into the credit and the money. But then he continued to like get executive producing credits and producing credits in all these movies. And depending on who you ask, his contributions were either nothing or just creative meddling, like insisting on things that everyone said didn't make sense, but that he really got a bee in his bonnet about and wanted to do. The funniest ones is he was the producer that was trying to get the Superman Lives movie off the ground for a long time, with Kevin Smith writing the script. And
that's
Smith
one with
kept
Nick Cage, right? That was supposed to have
And
Nick
Tim
Cage.
Burton directing.
Yeah. And so that was, with Tim Burton directing. So that was the one that Kevin Smith kept on submitting these scripts, and then John Peters would come back with notes that were like, well, Superman's got to be kind of a bad guy, and he's got to be kind of mean, he's got to be kind of desperate and angry, and Superman shouldn't fly because that makes him unrelatable, so I don't want him to fly at all in this movie. And and he kept on saying that he's got to fight a giant spider at the end, and that and that Brainiac needed more sidekicks that were like, he wanted Brainiac to have a marketable dog sidekick that could be like, that could sell like an Ewok type of figure. And he was obsessed with Superman fighting a giant spider at the conclusion of this movie. And then when Kevin Smith wrote an article about what a nightmare it was to work with him and mentioned the spider thing, all these other people who were in different movies with him mentioned that he also was always pitching a giant spider at the climax of the movie. Can you guess which movie he produced that actually had a giant spider in it? He finally made Wild Wild West.
Oh my god!
And got his giant spider after
That's
all
what
those
came
years.
to my mind when you said giant spider. I was like,
exactly. So this is the man who's producing this movie, and like, according to some people, they're not even sure if he's literate because he doesn't seem to be able to read the scripts. He just sort of has people tell him ideas, and then he just gives his gut reactions. But he somehow amassed a ton of power. And in this movie, he had the right to, like, he was one of the main producers on it. It's one of the reasons that he gets bumped to executive producer on the follow-up, because Tim Burton said he would not do another movie if John Peters had so much creative control. But Peters he made a couple of bad decisions, like insisting that Batman get into more fist fights. So he insisted on the alley sword fight, and he insisted on 3 goons showing up in the Belfry despite the fact that there's no way that they could have gotten there. He was like, no, we need him to fight these 3 goons in this Belfry. But he also made some good decisions.
Bizarrely out of place in the Belfry. Like, it was like, oh, it's 1-on-1 now. It's really finally getting to the point.
It seemed like it'd been building to that. Yeah,
and then
it makes it drag too.
And it's comical. It's like the first guy he just hits in the nuts, and the second guy jumps through the floor, and then the third guy he bangs his head into a bell with his legs. It's it's like
he tosses
like
one
a
of them
Stooges
off the
fight.
Belfry, which, by the way, is just straight up killing him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, also Batman probably murdered some people when he blew up the chemical factory, and Batman doesn't really do a lot of murder usually. They kind of I think that's one of those things, like we talked about at the very beginning of the podcast, is where like they shot and wrote some of these scenes the way they did because it was 1989 and that made sense then, but they should have probably been thinking about Batman, the character, doesn't have a lot of collateral damage because he tries to mitigate it.
Well, think about right now how they treat existing properties that aren't really that familiar to people. And the fanboys all freak out because they're not staying loyal enough to the original source material. But everyone who hasn't read the original source material because it's too fucking obscure is happy that they just told a good story. So, like, this is exactly what they're doing here. They were like, do we stay really loyal to the source material, or do we just tell the movie the way that we want to tell it and do fun things? Because it's not like all of Batman's lore and legacy is going to be important to anybody little do we know that this many years later, every single element of Batman's lore and legacy is like, so
Sacred.
important to our culture. Yeah, that we all know that Batman never kills anybody. So now this looks ridiculous. But at the time, it didn't really.
Even the Batman not killing people is something that is I mean, I say late, but like it's not a part of the initial Batman lore.
Yeah,
Like
he started
when
off straight
Batman
up
came out,
murdering people.
he just had a gun and he just shot people sometimes.
Yeah.
And that looks bizarre now.
With the purple gloves, right?
It's actually
Yeah.
it was actually called Bat Murder. Yeah, the other decision that Peters insisted on was
He's a bat, and here's his gat. Sorry.
the other thing that John Peters insisted on was that Kim Basinger be in that final scene in the tower, because originally scripted it was supposed to be Batman chases the Joker up there, and they were going to square off one-on-one, and he insisted that Basinger be in that scene because he was dating her at the time, and he really felt that she should be in as much of the movie as possible. So,
Yeah, this guy, like, I both hate him and see how some of these things should be like goals for me.
yeah,
Like,
seriously, yeah, he seems like a real douche, and also respect.
yeah,
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Like, I hope that I one day am a producer who doesn't need to read scripts, and I just have someone who can like tell me things, and I'm like, yeah, whatever like whimsical thing I'm thinking of, like put that in this movie.
Yeah,
I
spider.
have the power.
We all have
And
our
don't
giant
bu-
spider we hope to achieve.
Yeah, and
one
please
day.
don't trouble
yeah.
me with facts and logistics of why it wouldn't work, because I am in charge and I say things and you do them. This is the way that.
Also, bring me the check.
Yeah. Also, is the lead actress single? Yeah, she's gonna have to split up then. I'm sorry. We're gonna be dating now. That's my new rule. It's called the Peters rule.
Oh man.
yeah. What happened to his career? Do you think it just kind of petered out?
All right, I'll give you that one.
I don't know.
It went down.
I don't
to John.
Yeah, I went down to the John.
Yeah,
Very
nice.
good.
Brought it all full
Yeah,
circle.
that's why. I mean, we'll get into this more for Batman Returns, but that's why that movie goes a little like crazier. Like, there's a lot of more, like you said, it's like less real. It goes more into the surreal. That's because that's how they wooed Tim Burton to come back. Is they said like, look, we'll keep John Peters on a leash basically, and like you can do whatever you want. I think he had final cut.
Yeah.
So who do you think added in that the Batmobile? I mean, the Batplane has a built-in balloon grabber. It just had an arm that was like ready to specifically catch balloon strings and then drive it off to a safe distance.
It's all worth it for the image of the bat plane with the balloons flying off. Like, that's one of my favorite shots of this movie is the bat plane tugging those goofy looking balloons off into God knows where. And also
Tim Burton
another
designed
great Tim
balloons.
Burton gag of the bat plane flying up into the moon and making the bat symbol.
That's an iconic moment. That
Yeah.
is a fucking iconic
Yeah.
moment.
I mean, it didn't make any sense why he did that, but it was cool that he just like
Yeah,
does
exactly.
Like
Yeah, very much just
Well,
like, don't think too hard. It's just gonna be cool.
He's got to calibrate the instruments. You see, like he was getting a weird reading on the yaw, and if you go full vertical, you can set your yaw back to neutral, and then you get a good reading on the yaw after that.
Are we back to Oklahoma accents again?
I wasn't doing it on
Actually,
purpose.
that's just the old the Chuck Yeager pilot accent. Folks, we're gonna fly up towards the moon and check on the yaw here. If you may experience some turbulence, please fasten your seatbelts and have a pleasant flight.
I love that, like, the plane flies directly at Joker and he shoots the oversized gun at it. I don't think you would see that done, and that's another one where it's like of its time, but I think this one it works a little bit more. I know that gun doesn't make any damn sense at all.
I
but
love that gun.
we get the message.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, there's so many questions. Like, how did he orchestrate this parade? Did he get permits? Who's organizing this parade?
Who made the
that allowed
floats?
him to do this?
Well, early in
yeah,
the
who
movie,
made the floats?
Early in
Where'd
the
he get this money to throw everywhere?
early in the movie, the mayor is really adamant that the celebration has to go on when there's like a terrorist on the loose. You know, like,
Yeah.
They're like, should we
mayor-
cancel it?
the-
This guy's killing
the mayor
people. And he's
says-
like, no.
The mayor says, I quote, "I will take a shotgun and drag them out to this parade myself."
Why?
People will have a parade. God damn it.
We won't have a third act unless this parade happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
But no, I love the Joker's gun. I think it doesn't have to make sense. It's amazing. What I don't understand is how Batman can have machine guns, missiles, and the little Star Wars, TIE fighter, X-Wings sighting device, and still miss the Joker who's standing in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
That is hard to believe.
Question for you guys. Are we ready to play top 4?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, top 4.
Explain top 4 to me.
Doesn't know top 4. Okay.
So top 4 is a game that we play where we take turns guessing.
It's so dumb. You're going to be so frustrated.
Oh boy.
We take turns guessing what a particular actor's top 4 films are that they're most well known for, according to IMDb.
Oh boy, I'm gonna be trash at this.
So when you put their name into IMDb, what are the movies that come up? And we have to guess this. Do not use, don't cheat.
Don't cheat.
Yeah, because what the thing about this is that the movies are usually so bad and dumb and obscure that we would never in a million years get them anyways. So
It's usually
'cause
like
IMDb is
2 of
really
them
dumb.
are easy to guess, and 2 of them are like, why?
Yeah.
Sure.
All right.
So to start off with a bang, and he's only in this one movie, I decided to go with Mr. Jack Nicholson.
Okay. Who's first?
So now, Harris, I realize I wanted to be a participant of this game, but I'll tell you what, I'll do it this one time, but for the next 3, I think someone else.
Oh, I can.
should
Oh, have you
orchestrate
already
it.
looked at it? Because I can go on IMDb and look at it. And
I'm looking at it right
oh,
now.
okay.
I already
well,
looked
then
at
you
it.
have cheated. Yes.
So you'd be a cheater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's okay. I'll do Jack.
That's
Nicholson.
tough though, because he's got such a I feel like Kim Basinger or Jack Palance or somebody would be easier because they've got a smaller filmography. Jack Nicholson's got
So
such a
I guess my guess, and you guys have played this game a lot more than I have, so maybe you're gonna be like, you idiot, picking a movie you know. But my guess would be One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is the number one.
that's a good guess.
Are my number one guy.
That is a great guess because it's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
right,
who's
Colin.
Okay.
Colin,
I'm
you
going to
go
do the
next.
shinning.
You idiot!
Shinning. That is
good guess, too.
not correct.
Oh,
No,
ouch.
fuck.
I will go with The Departed.
Tell me something, my friend. You ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight?
That is correct.
Wow. All right. I have another guess. This is a little bit more off the wall. One Flew Over the... no, I said that one.
That's correct again.
5 Easy Pieces.
You idiot!
That is not correct. Sorry.
I think the movie is called As Good as It Gets.
Damn
is
it.
that
That was gonna
is
be
that
my
real?
guess.
Now get out of here!
Is
That
that
is
that on
real,
there?
and that is
Oh,
correct.
Oh, damn it. That was going to be my guess. I was going to get 2 of them. Ah, Colin, you bastard. I am going to go with Terms of Endearment.
Never rub another man's rhubarb.
No, sorry.
Could this be a
Now,
trick?
this is the round where we get a hint, right?
Yeah, I can give you guys a hint.
Did anyone else think that Terms of Endearment should have been a movie with deers in it?
With deer and mints.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And mints, yeah.
This movie has a sequel.
Could it be Batman?
You idiot!
It could be Batman, but it is not Batman.
Ugh.
Oh, I got it. Colin, you better get it because I'm going to get it if you don't.
A Few Good Men.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on! Let's get nuts.
Nope. Great guess, but nope.
I thought, the sequel, A Few More Good Men.
The very lesser known sequel.
Good Men was the first one.
Yeah. It is Chinatown, I bet.
I like him already.
Chinatown.
Chinatown.
Oh, yeah.
That's Chinatown, boys.
Trying to think of what Nicholson movie had a sequel to it. That was a tough
Yeah,
one.
most people don't know that movie has a sequel.
Yeah. What's it called again?
The Two Jakes.
The Two Jakes.
Two
not,
Jakes,
Not
yeah.
too good. Yeah. All
I
right,
give
well,
it
that
one
was-
Jake.
That was actually one of our best games ever. Our fewest
Yeah,
missed
it was
answers.
quick. You guys knew the movies.
Everyone got at least
Jordan
one.
was an active participant.
Yeah,
We only needed one hint.
nicely done.
Yeah.
Anything else that we want to talk about now?
I feel like there's still so much we could talk about this movie, but I mean,
Go
I
ahead.
just wanted to bring up one particular thing, which is so every Batman movie with the Joker does something with like the Batman Joker dynamic. And we talked a little bit about it's like, oh, well, you created me and you created me. But like, I feel like they tried to be deeper about some of the stuff. Like they had this whole thing where the Joker puts on makeup to look like a normal person, and then like goes out into the world. And they did the whole thing about like he acts like he's taking off his makeup when he's like putting it on, whereas Batman is kind of doing the opposite thing. But I didn't really feel much of a connection between Batman and the Joker. I don't know if you guys felt the same way, but it felt like weak at best, like them actually giving a crap about each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess one thing that they don't really do here is like, what is the Joker's plan? What is his whole, like, what is his end game?
Murder people.
You know?
Yeah.
I thought it was a little ironic that he, like, Grissom, the big bad boss before him, he goes to him, he's like, this over a woman? And he's like, that's such a stupid, petty reason to do things. And that's exactly why he decides he hates Batman.
Yeah, it's a weird... I think there's a lot of things. Part of it is there's an age difference in them. And then there's also, like, a power dynamic difference in that, like, the Joker doesn't seem to want anything that Batman can give him. And Batman seems to have, like it doesn't seem like the Joker can win this fight in a lot of the times. I know they try to, like, sort of disable, like, hobble Batman in certain ways. But it seems like he's the more capable, smarter, person in this fight. And the Joker just seems too unhinged and unfocused to really be that dangerous, which I guess is it's a great performance, but I don't know plot wise that it makes much sense. And I don't know that character wise that it develops the dynamic in a satisfying way.
I think the dynamic is supposed to be like he's made too bad of a psychotic break and he's just like a snowball juggernaut on the way towards like absolute chaos and destruction. And the conflict is that like they're like that's almost supernatural, and what else out there is there to stop him? It has to be something supernatural, and that's like this Batman figure. And I do think it's not just the Vicky Vale thing. I think it's the press in general that is like Batman gets press. But I don't know. I'm just making a case for the movie because I like it.
I'm just watching the scene where she starts kissing his shoulder of his like camel hair jacket.
It's weird.
And I'm just like, even when I was a kid, I was like, wait, is that supposed to like, do men find that appealing when a woman kisses the shoulder of their like overcoat? It's just, it's such a weird moment.
That's the main thing. When I go into a store and I'm looking to buy a coat, it's like I talk about this scene every time with everyone who works at the store, and most people that are in retail in general. I try to shift the conversation towards buying a coat and what. I don't know. I'm sorry. I got so lost.
We're not allowed back in that Nordstrom's anymore. So.
Yeah, Colin just couldn't stop talking about the lipstick resistance level of the overcoats.
What would the fibers do if they were to touch lips?
I have one sort of just pet peeve in general of all movies, and we've talked about different pet peeves, I think, at various times. But this is one of mine that comes up in this movie, of the main big bad randomly murdering his best and most loyal lieutenant just to prove how crazy he is.
He's bad, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like, I don't think it ever works. I don't think it works in this movie. I don't think it really ever works because, if anything, it makes me feel like this guy's now weaker because he's like one of the best parts of this movie is when Jack is slapping Eckhart around at the beginning, and Eckhart pulls his gun out, and Bob pops over his shoulder with his gun pointed at him, and Jack doesn't even have to move because that's how good Bob is. And I'm like, no, Bob is a guy. You take Bob to the end because Bob is a guy who will throw himself in front of a bullet for you, and he sure could have used Bob in that bell tower with Batman.
Harris, you're making a strong, rational argument, but deep down, I feel like, since we've been doing this podcast so long, and I know about your deep love for the quarrels of the world, the great sidekicks of cinema history. And just, I feel like if there's a great sidekick in there, you're gonna get emotionally invested and not even.
I was very emotionally invested in Bob.
Yeah.
Yes, I was
also. Yeah.
But I think just in general, it's I guess it's supposed to. From a narrative standpoint, the goal is to show how unhinged and dangerous this person is. But it actually makes me feel like they're less dangerous because A, they're not making any sense, and B, they are eliminating levels of protection that they could use in this
Yeah,
fight.
you know who's not good in
Yeah.
that scene is the henchman who immediately takes an order right after
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
He should have had some kind of confusion going on. I
Yeah, just a
think.
little bit of a. Maybe Bob was unpopular.
There's a lot of silly henchmen faces throughout this movie if you really look.
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely.
Well, it's because if you look them up, they're almost all just stuntmen. Not that stuntmen can't act, but they're very much just stuntmen that have been shanghaied into larger roles than they're used to.
There's also like a stuntman could be a good actor, but like he might not know he's on camera when they're filming him. You know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. He only knows he's on camera when he's jumping into a big pile of cardboard or something.
exactly.
How do you guys feel about the ending? Like how it all wraps up?
Another thing that scared me when I was a kid was that thing in his pocket. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I know it's like it doesn't. It's actually just like what's the word for that? Like it's nothing basically. Like
Yeah,
it doesn't
it's a
mean
little
anything. It's just like a
Talking,
little.
whatever, yeah.
It's a
But they
noisemaker. or
play it
whatever.
like the filmmakers like act like it does mean something. You know,
Yeah.
which when I was a kid, I remember thinking like, oh, this means the Joker's gonna come back somehow. Like
Yeah.
he's not really dead.
It's like a weird little
you know, which-
anti-MacGuffin. Like it doesn't drive them to do anything. Instead, it's more just like, here's something to think about.
Well, yeah, I thought it was like sort of playing like the whole, hey, he's still laughing, and then we see that he had one last joke. You know, his
Yeah.
final.
Yeah,
his
he
final
had a
gag.
think
voice
that's all
box
it
on
is,
him.
yeah.
I love the expression on Jack Nicholson's face when he is slipping down the ladder trying to hang on, and his foot's attached to the gargoyle, and he's like, and his face just looks very strained, and
Yeah.
he has this moment of like realization, like, oh shit, I'm not gonna get out of this one, and I think it's a good performance in a very brief moment. One of my favorite parts of the whole movie, and it's so funny because I think this is one of those moments, like you said, that they would never get away with something this anticlimactic today. Like, the whole Wonder Woman story, how they had to make a big CGI fight at the end of the first Wonder Woman movie that they really didn't want to do because they had sort of a more character-driven final conflict, but they were like, no, superhero movies end in a big fight, so they had to do this big fight that was literally the worst part of that whole movie.
And completely undermined the message of the entire movie.
Exactly, and so I think it's interesting that this movie kind of didn't have to do that obligation, so they didn't have to have a big Joker Batman fight. Like even the Dark Knight, the Dark Knight had like a little more of a protracted Joker Batman fight at the end where the Joker kind of held his own and was clever and whatever. And this
The
one
two
really
boats really raised the stakes.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, exactly. But this one didn't because it just sort of had like Batman's kicking his ass, and then in the end, through some fluke of luck and coincidence, he manages to throw them off the roof, which is my favorite part of the whole thing when the Joker goes falling off. And they both look, and then it's just like the quick cut of grabbing their wrists. They both go flipping over the edge, and then we just hold on the empty balcony, and you just hear him laughing. And it's such a great, it's such a perfect, the entire thing is ridiculous, but the execution level was so high that I was like, nice job, guys, you did it.
Yeah, his hands popping back up from off screen is great.
Yeah.
I had a little bit of a hard time feeling worried about Batman falling off of the roof because, like, the very first thing they establish about Batman is he has the ability to slow fall whenever he wants to.
Yeah.
So I was like, actually, it was probably a good idea to have Vicky Vale there because that's the only reason that them falling was, like, a problem. Because he
Right.
probably couldn't also do his
Yeah,
little
and maybe
parachute
why
in
they
the
had
air.
that whole weird 108 pounds thing earlier,
Yeah.
which I don't think was necessary at all.
No, strange.
Yeah.
Well, I think
It's a joke.
It's a
funny.
joke. It's that women lie about their weight. It's a sexist
guess.
joke, but that was the idea.
Okay.
But I agree completely. It's hard to imagine that he had to insist on Vicky Vale being there because it seems like she's integral to this part of the story, both for the Joker's, to like sort of level the playing field with the Joker.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Going back to the noisemaker in the pocket thing, though, it scared me so much as a kid that I gave them way more credit. Like, to me, it's like, oh, they're symbolizing that you can kill the Joker, the man, but you can't kill the evil that created the Joker, But maybe I went too deep just because,
You can kill the Joker, but you can't kill the joke.
Yeah.
Unless your name is Colin.
Oh, burn!
I've never killed a joke.
You've beaten him to death. You can kill the Joker, but you can't kill the little voice box thing in his pocket. That's the real message here.
Yeah.
Subtle.
I also love that he lands and makes like a full-on crater where he lands. Like,
Yeah.
there's just cracked like concrete that's like going out as though he was like this giant metal creature that landed.
Yeah,
there.
like
It would be worse than that in real life, I think.
well, in real life, I think there would be a lot of liquid Joker spread out in that whole area.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
he would have exploded like a water balloon.
Yeah,
the
I think
ground
the
would
sidewalk
have cracked around him.
Yeah, the sidewalk would have been okay. I think the Joker would have made a splash. And then we end with the bat signal.
I kind of like, I don't know. I used to like the ending when I was a kid. I liked a big villain death. I think I've gone over that before. But I don't know. Now I feel like it was kind of anticlimactic. Like he just kind of hangs there. Batman doesn't like it feels like a out of left field kind of thing. Batman just like has another grappling hook thing.
Yep.
And like we know how the grappling hook works. We've seen it happen a few times in this movie where it shoots out the grapple hook and then it pulls Batman to wherever he wants to go.
That's not
but
the
now
same
suddenly,
gadget. It's not the same.
What?
It's not
Yeah,
the
it's a
same.
different-
It's not the same?
Yeah, it's
He had like a
definitely
bolo
different.
one.
Yeah. Well, he had a bolo
it's
one.
all basically
Unclear.
The
Well,
same.
This is
the
unclear.
bolo one is the one that he slings around the Joker's ankles. The one that's like a gun with a little hook with like a little spear on it is the one that he snares the guy on. That's the one that he usually uses for getting around. And then
Right.
there's the one that shoots the two things out that he slides out of the museum on. And then this
Right.
is a fourth thing, which is like
Which we've never seen
Yeah, which
before.
we've never seen before, which is a full-on grappling hook that's like
Where-
But the important point is he doesn't best the Joker in any like philosophical or clever
Exactly,
way.
and that's what I'm getting at. It's like he bests him in some like out of nowhere way, and he's just hanging there from a statue, and there's no last lines between them. There's no like, I got you, you know, like you had the upper hand, and now I'm getting you. Like I don't know, it just didn't feel earned.
This is because we watched Commando recently, and you wanted to quip.
I did want to quit.
I don't know. I again will make my case that in this movie the Joker is kind of a snowball out of control juggernaut towards chaos and destruction. He's eventually going to destroy himself. You know.
Sure, I think that
Yeah,
makes sense.
That's, yeah.
Matt, would it have made it more satisfying if he had been like, I wish you could hang around longer, but I'm gonna have to let you down.
Yes.
That would have.
If Batman said
yes,
that?
yeah.
Have a nice trip. See you next fall.
Batman just has some solid kill people quips.
Yeah, exactly. That's all I
Oh,
need.
something about like the statute that brought him down. I don't know.
Yeah.
Damn it. Fuck. I don't know.
Yeah, and so we end with the bat signal, and it's beautiful, and it implies a sequel, which there was.
Yeah.
Several times.
There's something they do on the Harley Quinn cartoon show is where they imply that Gordon eventually will just use the bat signal because he needs someone to talk to. You know, like he's just like, Batman, I got to talk to you about my wife. It's like,
What I do like about this movie is that they didn't overload it with Batman villains and Batman shit that like we all like going into this. There's so much stuff they could have pulled. They could have put Robin in this movie, but there were talks of that early on and he was in the script and stuff, but they, I think rightfully took him out. Like it feels like it's just enough Batman stuff. And then towards the end you get the bat signal. You realize like that hasn't been there for the whole movie. And that's like the nice, like extra final elements, like, you know, oh yeah, remember that, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of an origin story, even though it doesn't cover his origin at all.
yeah,
Well, it covers his origin a bit, but yeah.
yeah, they could have made the mistakes what like Spider-Man 3 did, where it's just like there's a little bit too much going on here.
Well,
Yeah.
or you know, just basically every Batman movie after this sort of was like, we need at least two villains because nobody's going to watch a movie with only one bad guy.
But 4 is preferable.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I will say about this movie though, there like towards the middle there are some parts where the scenes really feel like, okay, here's a Bruce Wayne scene, and now here's a Joker like in a room by
Yeah.
himself scene.
This
or, like,
is parallel editing.
yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of slows down for a little bit there, where it feels like if they had one more character that they could cut to, it could like really make it pace it out a little bit better.
They're literally
agree
just
with that.
cutting the Joker watching TV, getting mad, and then cutting away again.
Yeah, the cutaways are very short. They cut to Bruce Wayne and Kim Basinger, and they're like going up the stairs, and she's like, "Are you drunk?" And he's like, "No, I don't drink." And then that's the end of the scene, and it goes to the next thing, you know.
It's like, no, I don't drink,
kiss?
but you can consent, right?
One drink and I'm flying, I think is what he says.
Why are you afraid of flying?
Yeah, one drink and I'm flying, so I didn't even have that drink.
One of my favorite lines that we forgot to mention is before Jack Napier becomes the Joker, Jerry Hall is like behind him. He's looking in the mirror.
Oh, yeah.
And she says, "You look great." And he turns around. And he's like, "I didn't ask."
Yeah.
I love that.
I think that's like, honestly, I feel like that's the part of this movie that I would like to believe that that's just Jack Nicholson just being himself. Like he was just doing his own dialogue.
His eyes like quickly dart down at her hand, like on his shoulder, as if to say, like, "Don't touch me." Yeah. It's great.
It's just nothing but Nicholson right there.
Yeah, I know we're seeing each other and everything, but don't get any ideas. We're not that close.
You're telling me the camera was rolling for that?
Sugar bumps.
No.
Sugar bumps. All right, let's rate this bad boy.
Yeah, let's do it.
Colin, you want to go first?
It's a 9 Timothy Dolphins because it's fucking excellent and I loved it. And Batman rules and he's great and fucking Batman's cool. There's some really charming stuff. Some of the best sets and costumes and production design you'll see. 1989. This is a window into maybe the best things about 1989. Maybe some of the mediocre things about 1989 also. Who knows? Batman, like, I love Batman, and this kept Batman relevant, and he's still relevant today. So I don't know. I feel like I want to say more, but I always just drag my portion of this out way too long. So yeah, 9 Timothy Dolphins.
I'll go next because I'll be quick because I agree with everything Colin said. I was wavering between an 8 and a 9, but I'm also going to go 9 Timothy Dolphins. This is an excellent movie. It's held up really well. It's, you can see in a lot of ways that it's, a very early, it's not what we've come to expect from superhero movies. And some of that, the growing pains of that show in interesting ways. But it's very watchable. It's aged great. It looks amazing. I love Tim Burton. I love Michael Keaton. I love Jack Nicholson. Everything in this movie works really well. So I'm going to give it 9 Timothy Dolphins.
All right, Jordan.
I feel like I'm being a little harsher than you guys. I still very much like this movie, but I do feel like Batman Returns is the better movie and is like grew a lot from this movie in a way. And there's some things that I think don't age all that well about this movie. So I think I was leaning. I'm kind of like between a 7 and an 8, but I'm willing to like pop it up to an 8. And maybe I don't know where the spectrum of all the different movies you guys have been on, but I feel like there's room to improve, and they do it in the next movie. Personally, I feel like. So yeah, I think that's where I would land on it. I loved it. I think it's really fun. It knows what it wants to be, and it does that particularly well. And it's super cool in the sort of homogenized modern superhero movie situation to see something that has so much of like a director's hand in it. And I love modern superhero movies. I'm not like an anti-Marvel kind of person or anything, but this has so much flavor. It has so much personality, and it's just fun to watch. It's different, and it's trying something weird, and I think it succeeds for the most part.
So can you phrase your score
in Timothy Dalton's?
Say, I give
this. So you know what? Can I give half Timothy Dalton's?
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna give it 7.5 Timothy Daltons. Timothy Dolphins. Is that what it is?
Yes.
All right. Okay.
We know what you meant.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm new.
Just
here.
remember, Henchman Bob died for those dolphins.
And yeah, just because I gave this a 9 doesn't mean that I don't also agree that Batman Returns is better.
Yeah, but where are you going to go
I don't
from there then? That's my question.
I can go to I can go all the way to 10 if I have to.
No, I don't like this, Harris. You spent the entire Bond cast pretending that you hadn't yet seen any of the movies after whichever movie we were on, and now you're acting like you've seen Batman Returns before. And
I've never seen it. I just assume it's better because he returns, and that's good.
Oh, okay, right.
Because he returns.
Batman.
It must be better.
Now you're making sense.
It's called Paul Rubens.
I'm right there with you guys. Obviously, this movie's great. Obviously, it is the most influential movie of the past 30 years. Like every superhero movie that we know and love, like has come from this. all the the decisions that were made for this movie were all new at the time, new and shocking and different. They scared people, and like every one of them was a slam dunk. Everything works. This movie just works on every level. And like, while, movie making has changed in the past 30 years, I think this still holds up. There's really my only like knocks to this movie are that the pacing kind of slows down a little bit towards the end, and it gets a little goofy, with that ending, with all the fighting we were talking about with the henchmen and stuff. Other than that, I think the score is great. I love the Danny Elfman score here. The production design is fantastic. This movie looks wonderful. All the actors are great. Michael Keaton kills it. Jack Nicholson is like legendary in this role. Kim Basinger is even great. Fucking Arliss. Sure.
Billy D. Williams.
Billy D. Williams.
Yeah, I mean the Prince music, it's a little kind of dated, if you will, or like weird, but awesome, like still awesome. Like I can't really say anything bad about Prince. I mean, God, like it's hard for me to think of anything that I really dislike about this movie. There's not much. But yeah, I have to also, I mean, the only reason I'm not giving this a 10 is just because of like,
politics.
It is a little slow. It's in points, and the editing, the pacing's a little weird. That's my only knock. So I'm going to give this 9 Timothy Dolphins. And that's our show. Jordan, thank you very much for being our guest. We hope you had fun.
Yeah, it was a good time. Thank you guys for having me on.
Do you have anything you want to plug, or you want to throw out your
Twitter or your Instagram or anything?
Follow me on Twitter at Jordan Pidgeon. That's Jordan and then pigeon, like the bird, and it's all one word there. And and then from there you can find the other stuff I'm on. Also, check out twitch.tv/savingthrow show, and they've got a lot of like live action RPG shows and stuff, some of which I'm on.
How do you spell that?
Saving Throw Show, like SAVINGTHROWSHOW, and it's all just one word.
And what sort of things can people see there? That's where you play like RPG stuff?
Live Dungeons and Dragons style games.
So it's like where you roll the dice and
Sure
stuff.
is.
Yes, sir.
That's what a saving throw is.
Yeah.
I know
Yes.
that, even though I've never played any of those games.
They're great.
I have
Give them a
great
try.
cultural awareness.
But here's a question: can we get some sort of maybe large, maybe giant spider involved into this?
Yes.
At the end of the Dungeons and Dragons game, can they fight a giant spider? I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to insist on this.
The answer is distinctly yes.
All right, guys. I think we should close out the show with us in unison singing "Na na 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 Batman." Okay.
Okay.
Here we go. 1, 2, 3.